about half of those numbers having recovered. So we're looking at 50-50 now, with 439,085 deaths around the world. Still continues that numbers continue to rise in the United States, 2,182,950. Florida saw 1,000 cases every day for the last 3 days, and then yesterday saw 2,000 and some odd cases that have been recorded. Over the last 6 hours, 5,012 new cases have been recorded globally, with 3,427 of those 5,000 cases having been recorded in Mexico alone, with 439 deaths. So just over 10% of the cases having been found in Mexico have resulted in death. And we see numbers rising in Bolivia, in Guatemala, and in Honduras. China, having found some cases within the Beijing area, has gone back into a state of lockdown with what now experts are calling the start of the second wave of infections of COVID globally. China had been on, a lull in terms of infections over the last couple of weeks, rather over the last several weeks, up to 6 weeks. But now with what they're calling cluster infections around Beijing, they've decided to go back into a state of lockdown, and it's possible that we could see from the cluster infections that you would get more community infections as a result of this. Interesting, because these cases that they found in Beijing were not imported cases.
No, it's a market.
Yes.
So what is the new state of lockdown? What does that mean?
Well, they've gone to exactly what they were doing in Wuhan a couple of months ago. And
what?
So, in terms of a lockdown, no movement.
Where?
In Beijing.
No movement at all?
Yeah, in Beijing.
Stay indoors?
Yes. We looked at the strict measures having taken place in Wuhan, but now they've employed the same measures in Beijing because of what they found. And they're following the belief that it could be the second wave, that could be a little bit more intense than what the first wave looked like.
Hey, this thing is just going to be too much.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I mean, now we're looking at... It's ridiculous now.
Actually, it isn't.
City.
When you have an idea of what should happen and it doesn't happen, then it becomes a little taxing to the mind. The process that we are actually seeing unfolding before us is not a process that hasn't, or let me say, it's not a pattern that hasn't been seen with pandemics before. And those who have a historical perspective on these things warned a long time ago. And they said, please, don't celebrate too early. Don't open up your country's economies just yet.
Yeah.
With these matters, there's always a second wave. But more importantly, those who are in the business of conducting research on this particular virus, there are very many things they still do not know. Right now, there's a debate about the issue of those who are asymptomatic. Somebody's infected, but there are no signs of any problems, any ailment, nothing whatsoever. And the debate revolves around such persons being at very minimal risk of being able to transmit COVID.
COVID, yeah.
But then the question that comes to mind is this. Is it possible that for COVID to actually be measurable, it actually has to exist, from a layman's perspective, in a certain quantity in your system for it to be measured by the tests that we have? And that if it's below a certain level, they will not be able to detect it.
Yeah.
I'm asking the question because it can't be that Beijing suddenly has infections coming out of nowhere. It is very, very possible that there were people who were already infected, but not only being asymptomatic, you simply couldn't detect the existence of the virus in the body. What if that is also the case?
It would be interesting if that's what it were.
Remember, we've also been debating, what if COVID was already in existence?
Even before December
Even
last
before
year.
it started becoming an epidemic and people started saying, should we say the big explosion occurred? What if it was there? And it hadn't quite manifested itself in the way that we are now seeing.
It's highly probable. Actually, France is already operating on that premise. that they had COVID-19 last year. Looking back at posthumous tests that have been done, and they're saying, all right, so these people exhibited symptoms of COVID-19. They test them, they find that they had COVID-19, and they're testing the bodies. And France has already gone to that point where they're saying, as early as December, COVID-19 was in France. So maybe it was there even earlier.
I remember the Americans also did the same and came to that same conclusion.
Yeah.
That as early as December last year, because the question was raised, there are people who died under circumstances that were not certain. Why don't we test? And indeed.
Yep.
And then what muddies this particular waters even more is the uncertainty of test kits. Because you will find that it is not perhaps widely reported, but there are very many false positives. We are hearing that same complaint coming from people who are at our borders, mostly the border we have with Tanzania and the drivers who are there. So on the Kenyan side, I'm told I tested positive, but when I came over this side, I tested negative. Now, which test actually works? Because if you can have false positives, you can have false negatives.
Yeah.
True.
True.
Same.
Same.
Well,
All right. It's gonna be an interesting one.
it is. I mean, because if
A
you're
long
looking at
2 years, perhaps.
yeah, probably.
As we see this happening, as we see this unfold, as we see the second waves develop, as we see countries continue rushing to get the proper vaccine for this.
You know-
That story, the vaccine, by the way, has sort of died down, and the progress of it.
You know, as is always the case with the situation such as the one we are in, what you will find is that there are very many stories about the vaccine. There are people who had even claimed they'd come up with a vaccine. These stories will come up. But remember, for something to be declared a vaccine that is actually commendable or recommended by, should we say, health bodies across the world, man, it has to go through some serious peer review.
Hey.
Yes, it's not that you and I go to our garage and we come up with this and say, if you drink this thing and pour some through your ears, for sure the following morning you'll be fine. You'll be told,
Nothing.
you drink it and pour it through your ear first and let's observe you.
Okay. It's an interesting one.
Yeah, looking at those numbers, though, we saw, I mean, the highest number we saw of infections in China, though, was 3. And that was over the last 6 weeks. 3. And in the last 6 hours, we've seen 40 cases in China just coming out of this. And then and all of them coming out of the Beijing area. So there's something to be looked at for that argument, to say that, it's possible that it was, I don't know. It's too early to call it latent, but something was hanging around that suddenly then, cut through the surface. That's for sure.
Hey, let's hope it's not as bad as the first
That's
time.
the first time.
Yeah. So we are going into a break, take a look at weather, and then we'll start having a look at newspaper headlines. And we're giving away 1,000 shillings worth of Safaricom airtime today. If you are able to get onto your Safaricom mobile, dial star 550 star hash 2 hash. That's star 5502. Hey, let me start. Star 550 star 2 hash. With that, you'll be able to get the standard e-paper. Today's standard online on your mobile phone. You don't need to download any app. You don't need to worry about data charges or anything. Just for 20 shillings, you will get the standard newspaper. Just dial star 550 star 2 hash, and I'll give you 1,000 shillings of Safaricom airtime. If you're able to call us between now and 7 o'clock and tell us this story, what page it's in, and the headline for the story. It's somewhere between the first page and the 5th page of the Standard this morning. It says some 1,500 Kenyans may have lost billions of shillings in yet another suspected investment fraud. The investors now fear that they have been conned after putting their money in eFarm, an outfit that had promised them millions through digital farming. eFarm's management has confirmed that it has suspended operations. Wallace Mora is the chairman of eFarm, and he says the society collapsed and the offices closed after squabbles within the board and among investors. Among the reasons fronted for the collapse of eFarm was that the state barred it from venturing into agribusiness even after investing millions in the construction of greenhouse structures. Now, 5 million shillings is the amount feared lost by one eFarm investor. and others. So what page is this story and what's the headline of this story? It's a story whose script sounds very familiar. Hundreds were promised millions in returns from digital farming that never was. These are stories that we've had recently of very many people who have actually gone into this kind of stuff. So this one is called eFarm, and people have lost billions in another suspected scam. If you tell us what page that story is and what the headline of the story, we're going to give you 1,000 shillings worth of Safaricom airtime. Just dial *550*2# and just 20 shillings you get to access the Standard newspaper on your mobile phone. Good morning, it's 6:15.
24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
All right, it's a chilly morning in Nairobi. We're looking at mostly cloudy conditions in the capital this morning, and it'll take us to highs of 22 and lows of 13 today, with showers during most parts of the afternoon. All right, then taking a look into Nyeri, where it's mostly cloudy conditions, and we'll see then thunderstorms later on. Highs of 21 and lows of 13. Nakuru takes us to 23 degrees, a high today, and lows of 13 with thunderstorms in the afternoon. Taking a look then into Eldoret at 13 degrees, where it's mostly cloudy. We will see highs of 19 and lows of 12 with thunderstorms promised for the afternoon. All right, taking a look then into Kisumu, where at 19 degrees, it's partly cloudy conditions. We'll see highs of 27 and lows of 19, and thunderstorms are promised for the afternoon. And looking into Kakamega at 16 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 15. We will see thunderstorms as well later on, and Likely that this will go through the rest of the evening into tomorrow. All right. In Malindi, 26 degrees is mostly cloudy, highs of 28 and lows of 26 with cloudy conditions through most parts of today. In Mombasa, 26 degrees is mostly cloudy, highs of 28 and lows of 24. Taking a look then into East Africa, where in Kampala it's 18 degrees and mostly cloudy, highs of 24 and lows of 27 with rainy conditions through most parts of the day. In Dar es Salaam at 22 degrees, partly cloudy conditions throughout today with highs of 31 and lows of 22. Taking a look then into Johannesburg, where at 4 degrees it's clear skies with a few clouds. It's going to rain today and cool things down much further than only going to highs of 9 and lows of 3. All right, taking a look then into Lagos, where at 26 degrees it's clear skies, highs of 31 and lows of 25. Let's start things up looking into New York now, where at 18 degrees clear skies are promised for most of the day as the sun comes up there with highs of 23 and lows of 16. And then in London, where it's 15 degrees and clear skies, highs of 23 and lows of 13. Rain expected later on. And finally for now, in Paris, where at 15 degrees it's cloudy conditions. There's a thunderstorm warning for yellow today, highs of 22 and lows of 14.
The Situation Room is Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning on this 16th day of June, Tuesday. We are taking a look at newspaper headlines shortly. Before we do that, just dial star 550 star 2 hash on your Safaricom mobile and you'll get to access the standard newspaper on your phone. And if you get this story and you tell us what page it is, between page 1 and page 5 of the Standard, and the story is a story whose script sounds familiar. Hundreds were promised millions in returns from digital farming that never was. 1,500 Kenyans may have lost billions of shillings in yet another suspected investment fraud. The investors are now fearing that they have been conned after putting their money in eFirm, an outfit that had promised them millions through digital farming. The story goes ahead to tell us about many investors who had put in some cash. There's a man here called Patrick Kibe who fears he might never get back his investment in what he was led to believe would be 2 greenhouses. He had put in 100,000 shillings with the understanding that his return would be 400,000 shillings spread over 5 years. He says that the chairman of this organization, Moura, had told him that they had partnered with an Israeli company specializing in agribusiness. He believed that he could pay good returns. To date, he has not received a coin from his investment. He claims the largest investor in the group stands to lose 5 million shillings. Another investor claims to have invested 450,000 shillings under the impression that eFarm would get him a parcel of land in Thika. I was promised a plot in Malaa, Machakos. Then I was told that I was being considered for land in yet another place. None of them has come to fruition. What page is that story? What's the headline of that story? 1,000 shillings airtime, 0719 012 600. That's the number to call between now and 7. We don't get somebody winning this by 7 o'clock. All right, we roll it over. That's an interesting story, though, but it's always happening. I mean, it's not new.
Not new.
100,000 shillings, you've invested in something. The company tells you, we have partnered with agribusiness firms. If you put in this money, we're going to roll out greenhouses, but we'll give you a return.
You know, this story is not new. You know, we're thinking of what we've read in the papers in perhaps the last year or so.
Yeah.
These stories go back to even independent times and even before. Why do you think it is, for instance, that there's some 2 land buying companies in this country which are known more for directors dying and people chopping each other and shooting each other than anything else?
This is Kehiomwere and Mboi Committee.
Yes. And the reason is nothing dissimilar from this one. People gave money. Because that's what it is.
Yep.
Land buying company.
Yep.
People give money. And over time, your money represents certain shares.
Yes.
And man, you wait for those things. Something just doesn't seem to happen.
Yeah, so your allocation of some share, you get some piece of paper somewhere.
Telling you that this land is supposed to be whatever. It never seems to happen.
But
and
it's a
yet,
coffee plantation, so first of all, let's get
Yes.
some proceeds of this coffee, and you'll be getting your returns based on the number of shares that you have in this, right?
Yes, exactly. And then the directors just keep growing from rich to richer to richest.
To riches.
And you're wondering, wait, when is this thing ever going to happen? So there's something here. There are, I think, from time immemorial, there have always been people who are inclined towards being fraudulent. It's like that's how their mind
It's wired.
was structured. Okay, they will not think. What is to stop someone from actually doing exactly that and providing people with land?
That's what I was about to tell you. I mean, if you think about it, it is a model that should work.
Yes,
And it's something that
there's
should
no reason
work
why it shouldn't work.
really well. Because you go get a large piece of land, what you do, you set up you bring in agricultural experts. And what you're asking people is to provide the capital that is required. So you're buying shares, by putting in this money, you're basically just buying shares into this organization, into this venture, right? But I think the problem comes when you start being very, very specific on the returns. If you put in 100,000 shillings, you're going to get 250,000 shillings in 6 months' time now.
You know,
I think that's where now we start going.
But I think it's clear that the promise that they're giving is not about the individuals who invest, but it is about them who are behind the fraud or the scam, about getting as much as they can. So if you overpromise something, the likelihood of more and more people to get into that is higher. So, and that's because the end game is not for people to develop or to gain. The end game is for the individual who's starting this particular scheme or scam
to get as much
money as they can.
In a
So they don't
quickest-
really care about what happens to the individuals and their money.
you know,
They're looking for ways to multiply that.
there are those who promise heavy returns, but then there are circles and other such groups who don't promise anything; they just promise you land.
Yeah.
And you'll find they've had scheme upon scheme upon scheme. And if you go back 10 years, no one who bought land through them 10 years ago has a title.
Yeah. Everybody has some allotment letter.
Yes.
Something.
And that's something.
And you're required to pay 100,000 shillings or so for processing of the title.
Yes.
And then you hear some people have paid and then others have not paid.
Yes.
And unless all of you
pay, we can't process
cannot
this
process
in this thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually, the deposit they ask for is something
So
that
annoying.
It is annoying, and they target teachers, they target civil servants,
Yep.
and they even tell you the piece of land, and they'll even take you there. What I have found with time is that the land may actually exist. They may even
They have the original title.
yes,
for it,
everything
right?
may even exist. But what would happen is, I participated in one such scheme where they paid the owner of the land the requisite 10%.
You said it sounds like you.
Yeah, I participated.
You say participated. It sounds like you were one of the fellows pulling the strings.
No, I'm one of the
I got
fellows
it.
who actually gave money.
I got it. Yeah.
You're one of the victims.
I'm one of the victims.
Okay.
Yes. And
So they'd given like 10% down payment to the original owner of the land
yes.
with a promise that
But the law is very clear about how these things should be done. And they were requiring prospective buyers to pay the entire amount
right?
over a period of time, of course, not immediately. So people would pay. They would pay. Somewhere along the line, something would happen, or in this case, something did happen, and they said, we're now taking you to another parcel of land. I remember I said, I do not want to go anywhere near. I want land where I was told. Okay?
So what has happened to that initial transaction?
They did not pay the owner of the land the balance.
So the guy cancelled the deal.
Not only cancelled it, he kept the 10%. The law allows you to do that. Okay? So now this other piece of land that they want to take people to is one of these delightful pieces of land where you find you're the fourth person who is laying claim to that land. If you're fortunate, you're only the second. So, and what is even stranger is that people still go for the schemes when the same fraudulent outfit takes an advert out that they are now They now have another scheme. People still want to buy.
People will surround and read this article today in this paper. They will be standing in a group and somebody will come and say, you know what? I actually know of another one where they didn't do this. Theirs is very clean.
Yeah, got paid.
And I was paid. Come, I show you. Same people who've read
They'll
it
remove their
will
money
remove
from
their money and go and pay. I don't know what it is.
I remember there was a time, some of these, this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It sounds very logical.
Yeah.
And over the period of time, it sounds logical. But it's a pyramid scheme.
It is a pyramid scheme. In fact, I was just thinking, that case of yours, the owner of this land plus the directors of the organization that was buying were in cahoots from the very beginning.
There's no question about it.
Let's inflate the price of this land. Let's get 10%. Let's use that 10% just basically to walk away with cash. In the very end, that 10%, whatever amount it was, 100 million or whatever, they end up with it free money for doing nothing. Just placing a piece of land there and saying, you can buy this land.
What they would also say was that, when you paid your 100,000 shillings, the person who introduced you would take a percentage of it.
Some commission,
because they're the ones who introduce you to it, some 10 to 20,000 shillings. And yet, nothing ever came of this. Absolutely nothing.
And those things still exist. I know there are some other pieces of land still within Nairobi and Nairobi Metropolitan. Like you're saying, civil servants, teachers, lecturers, like lecturers of KU, some of them are embroiled in a piece of land somewhere. They've been told to pay 250,000 shillings to process this title deed.
Wow. Ambitious.
And then the management of that keeps changing,
Yes, it does. It does. And what alarms you is that the officials of that particular circle, you hear somebody has built a nice house at home. And this guy is a teacher.
Yes.
They've bought a car.
They're your workmates. They're your work colleagues. You know their lifestyle.
You know them. It's not that they're people who you don't know.
Yeah.
It's actually madness.
Completely. 28 minutes to 7 o'clock. Let's take a look at traffic, and then this conversation continues. We'll look at other newspaper headlines. Remember, you only have 28 minutes to call and win 1,000 shillings worth of Safaricom airtime. Good morning.
Things are looking good on Kangunda Road this morning and Outer Ring. That area doesn't have much of an issue right now as people are trying to get in and out of the CBD. Langata Road today, you need to be careful. There seems to be that bumps have been erected along that road, and this is opposite the barracks. And people don't seem to see these and are going quite fast. So, guys, you need to be careful as far as that is concerned as you're going down Langata Road. All right. Other parts of the city where we know there will be issues already before they even come up on Thika Road and Mombasa Road as well. If you've left early, then you're in good stead. If not, you're going to have to add a dash of patience to whatever it is that you're dealing with now. Waiyaki Way, headed into the city centre via the Westlands roundabout, is moving, and it's moving quite slowly, but it's moving all the same. We don't have much in terms of traffic right now, but we'll let you know what it looks like in about half hour or so and how you can get where you're going as quickly as possible while remaining safe. Spice of MKE, that's how you can get in touch with us on Twitter. Let us know what you see and we'll help you move it along as smoothly as possible.
Okay. Interesting stories in the newspaper today.
I'll just pick one. I thought this was interesting. So something else happening on top of the Standard, but on the bottom it says ... ellipsis. As Ruto says, Senate should not be forced to rescue her. Her being Anne Waiguru. I know we're going to look at this a little bit later in a little bit more detail, but it's interesting that the Deputy President has spoken out at this point concerning this, and He's met some senators and he's urged the Senate to resist influence in the governor's case. The DP, according to the Standard, who has had a love-hate relationship with Waiguru, says she should defend herself against allegations by the Kirinyaga Assembly. He met 14 Jubilee Party senators for strategy talks, during which he told them to independently consider the case against the impeached Kirinyaga governor Anne Waiguru. Sources aware of the meeting quoted the DP as saying the governor should defend herself against the allegations leveled against her by the members of the county assembly. Ruto said the governor should defend herself. He was categorical that senators should independently decide the case without influence. And the DP had invited 16 senators for the afternoon strategy meeting, of which 14 then were able to come to. A source quoted the DP as telling the senators, "Let Waiguru rise or fall on the strength of her defense against accusations by the Kirinyaga ward representatives." So I think he was insisting on making sure that they made a decision for themselves when it came to how they're going to deal.
Let due process be followed.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. The other half of that story is where ODM is basically saying that we will follow our due process by whipping our members to support Waiguru.
There you go.
We'll discuss this later. We have an interesting one, CT.
We do have an interesting one, but the thing that it shows you is this. This matter of Waiguru's, what is actually in the papers has nothing to do with what the MCE has presented.
Yep.
That matter was left behind.
You would think it would be the one with the most import.
It isn't.
Yep.
What is now being discussed is something completely
Totally
different. Yes.
Okay. So Facebook has launched a payment platform that the Standard and others are saying is rivaling M-Pesa. So this digital payment system is on WhatsApp. It comes less than 4 years after its founder, Mark Zuckerberg, visited Kenya to benchmark mobile money applications. Actually, when he visited Kenya, that's about 3 or 4 years ago, he said he was really interested in learning how this mobile payment system works and how he could pivot and go and launch his own. So Facebook Pay was launched in Brazil yesterday after initial trials in India, another developing country where plastic money has not taken root. Users are able to send money between themselves for free, while the businesses receiving payments are charged a small fee. It's unclear if the tech giant will keep the user-to-user service free. Payments on WhatsApp are beginning to roll out to people across Brazil beginning today, and we're looking forward to bringing it to everyone as we go forward. The firm has already indicated it will be rolling out the service to more countries after successful trials in Brazil, its second biggest market, with 120 million users. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to roll out. I do not think it's rivaling M-Pesa.
No, I don't think so.
It can think so.
It can think it is, but...
The thing about M-Pesa is that, well, it's there are very many other platforms in which you can pay money via mobile phone. M-Pesa is entrenched very well in the country. I don't think people would...
And it collaborates very closely with banks and other financial institutions.
Yep. And businesses.
More
and small
importantly,
businesses.
you see, if you are introducing something new, yes, it could possibly be a potential rival in the years to come. But speaking currently, no.
Ngomo.
No, it's going to be very hard.
Ngomo.
I mean, if you want to look in country, and there's several other platforms that even try to rival M-Pesa with the same conditions right here, trying to rival and are miles, light years behind in terms of what they've been able to achieve. Then to think that someone outside of the country would then launch something and then it would be said to rival, that's a far stretch, I would say.
The commercial enterprise that Safaricom reminds me of is Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola never sleeps.
No.
They never stop competing. Just when you think
that you all know about Coca-Cola,
yes,
and you're going to drink it anyway.
They started off by giving Fanta God knows how many flavors. Just when you think that Coca-Cola were taking a break. As someone explained it to me once, as far as they're concerned, every beverage is competition. From water to tea
as long
to
as
coffee,
you
drink milk
as
to
long
juice.
as it's drunk, it is competition. And start with the non-alcoholic. So they came up with their own water. came up with their own tea,
And juice.
came up with their own juice. Now, if you ask me, look at Safaricom and look at what they do. Apart from simply making it possible for you to buy and send money, they make it possible for you to feel that the process of spending this money through their system is of other benefit from you. They bring you bonga points.
Through which you can buy gadgets and do your shopping, things that are pertinent to your survival.
Yes, they are.
They make it possible for you to do.
Yes, you can even buy a phone. And you can even buy the same airtime. I mean, there are people there who actually think these things through. And it's like they never stop thinking. You know, Airtel, what was Zain and what it was even before then, were ahead of Safaricom at some point.
Yes, they were.
And they were even considered to be, should we say, a better option. Somewhere along the line, they dropped the ball. Safaricom picked it up and has never let go.
And has run with it, that's for sure.
They don't stop. And remember when we hosted the CEO, the new CEO, Peter Ndego, the other day, and what he was telling us is it's about the people. It's always about the people. As long as you're thinking about the user,
they've got it.
You're good.
They've got it.
They've got it. So, yes, Facebook may launch this app. It may actually succeed in those other countries. Remember, Facebook has also tried to come up with another. In fact, they're partnering with other organizations to coming up with a new form of currency, right? But I think in this region and all, well, I do not see it coming into this country and dislodging M-Pesa in any way, not at least here. The challenge would be now for M-Pesa to actually roll out to other countries. Remember, now that we are speaking about Safaricom, on your Safaricom mobile phone, you can dial *550*2#, and you get to access the Standard newspaper for only 20 shillings. And this is the digital version of the Standard newspaper. You don't need to download any mobile app. You don't need to worry about any data charges. You don't need to worry about being asked to sign up and give your details. No, you just do that *550*2#. You get the paper, you read the paper, and tomorrow you repeat the process if you want to read the paper. That's it. Simple as that. And we're giving away 1,000 shillings worth of Safaricom airtime this morning. If you tell us on what page this story is, it's on the Standard. It's somewhere between page 1 and page 5. Talking about 1,500 Kenyans who may have lost billions of shillings in yet another suspected investment fraud. This involves a company called eFirm, a story whose script sounds familiar, where hundreds of promised billions in returns from digital farming that never was. We'd like to know what page that story is and the headline of that story. 0719-012-600.
Right. It is June 16th, like you had said. Today is the Day of the African Child, the International Day of the African Child, that celebration. And, we look at this day and then milestones that have been crossed, and milestones that are still looking towards being crossed when it comes to the protection of children. This all started many, many years ago, as far back as 76. It was 44 years ago now. Let's just give a little bit of a background to it. A group of about 10,000 children took to the streets of Soweto in South Africa to protest the poor quality of education, demanding to learn in their language. More than 100 people died in that protest, known as the Soweto Uprising, as the children marched in a column more than half a mile long. In 1991, the OAU instituted the Day of the African Child to remember the killings and to call for introspection and commitment towards addressing the numerous challenges facing children across the continent. This year's theme, Access to a Child-Friendly Justice System in Africa, underscores the importance of a judicial system that guarantees children dignified, expeditious, and fair. So celebrations have been going on for a week. It all culminates today. To this end, the National Assembly has been urged to speed up the enactment of the Children's Bill 2019, which seeks to align the Children's Act with the Constitution of 2010. This comes amid growing concerns about the safety of children during COVID-19 pandemic, with reports indicating that violence against them, both at home and through police brutality, is rising. I think this is very interesting because one of the things we spoke about is that, when children were asked to go home, looking at the largest population of people who would move within the country when it came to closure of stopping of activities was children or of school-going age, then between the ages of 3 and 18. But one thing that was not taken into consideration, that a lot of children use school as an escape from a lot of violence that they face.
Yeah.
So them being removed from school meant that you are marrying them with this violence again.
You're basically putting them back there.
Exactly. And I
in
think
the area of risk.
Yeah. So when it comes to justice then for children, and I think that the belief though with a lot of African parents is that the child is yours, right? By virtue of the fact that you sired this child, then you can do whatever you want to him or her. And there have been many processes to try and get people to remove themselves from this kind of thinking and actually have the law act on behalf of these children. That it doesn't mean because you're their parent, then you get to mistreat, abuse them. Whether this abuse is mental, physical, or emotional, it was not then allowed to happen. And so African countries now are really being asked to look at the justice system and make sure that there is protectionism for children when it comes to the law. Who can take parents to court? Who can report these cases of abuse, of rape? We continue to see of teenage pregnancies where young girls are getting pregnant, not because they chose a partner, because they don't even know what's happening to their bodies at some point in time. But they're married off, pregnant at the age of 10, 11, where they're still a child. So countries across the continent then on this particular day are being asked to remember this, but then also continue the fight to make sure that the law, and I think it's important here, is that the Children's Act stood on its own as an independent act, but then now trying to have it aligned with the Constitution, I think is very important, because then it becomes entrenched in law of the land.
You know what is actually strange is when people are disenfranchised, because that's what I was thinking of. I was thinking of a traditional setting and the role and the value that people placed on children. The opportunity to mistreat a child was rare. Simply because that particular system guaranteed that there was a check and balance.
Yeah.
Then you get to crossroads where in comes this new dispensation where we are getting modernized. And when I say disenfranchised, I was thinking of South Africa. And I was thinking about how men would come to town to work and leave their families. And there would be dormitory setups where men would actually live. Now, you see, it may not appear so, but you've already dislocated that particular system that existed.
Yep.
Now, if you then bring a situation where this family now comes into town, imagine coming into town with a rural mindset. You have to adjust. You have to fit in. You have to cope with all the stresses. The support system that you are used to doesn't exist. Now, that amount of pressure,
Yeah.
and it's a lot of pressure, what do you think will happen? You know, a traditional setting, let me go back into history. You know, things like guavas you didn't buy. I remember.
Just go and pick.
Look what, but they were there. You just picked. In fact,
Mangoes in Nigeria. Yeah.
yes, ours, the smallish mangoes, they simply grew, and you picked them, and you ate them. Some blackberries and things like that, they grew.
Yeah.
Look what they grew. You simply picked them and ate them. Now you can imagine, you can grow up believing that that is the nature of things. So when you actually find them being sold, it comes a bit of a shock to you. Why is this thing? Why? You know, I wondered why it was that at independence, when the Africans who took over the posts of the white people, and then also the residences of the white people, always had their homes full of people. I grew up knowing that a house has to be full of relatives. It's just the thing. They have to be relatives now. But most Africans came from a structure of a home or a house which was one room.
Yeah.
And they survived in that one room. So now you introduce this person to a house which has 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, and all have extra rooms. Hey,
Why are you living in a
big.
palace?
it's too much.
You're living in a palace.
Yes.
Why?
Your whole mind is accustomed to just functioning within this one room, and then somebody introduces that space is a little much. You have to have people fill it.
People must come in and fill it.
Yes.
This particular space. It's a situation with Kenya's biggest conversation at 10 to 7. Well, remember, the live stream is up. Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. This story of boundaries and people crossing boundaries and coming back, I think we just need to accept it, get to a point where we accept and we move on. 24 mourners moved from virus patient,
Okay, breathe.
24 mourners moved with a virus patient from coast to Siaya and back. Authorities in Mombasa were yesterday scratching their heads after a group of mourners outwitted them and travelled from the coastal city last Thursday to Ndera village in Alego, Siaya, without authorization. A 68-year-old woman who was in the same bus with the mourners tested positive for COVID-19 on Saturday as they headed back to Mombasa. Yesterday, the Mombasa County Commissioner Gilbert Kitio was confirming that all the mourners were forced into a quarantine facility upon their return from Siaya. They were quarantined at the KMTC, where they were ushered in by police on Sunday. Among those in quarantine is a widow and her 2 children. The Standard has established that 27 people, including a man who joined the entourage as it arrived in Mombasa, are on quarantine. On Thursday, the 24 took the body of trade unionist Evans Odero from the Coast General Hospital. Armed with only a burial permit, they headed for Tononoka location, where a local chief allowed them to travel to Ndera village. The trade unionist died on June 5th after developing high fever with breathing difficulties. According to family reports, family members who accompanied the body claim that Siaya police confiscated the medical document from them, a claim that Standard was not able to confirm. It's also not clear under what circumstances the body was allowed to leave the mortuary in Mombasa. 24 people, they found their way all the way from Mombasa. They crossed Mombasa into Kwale, into Taita Taveta, into Makueni, into Machakos, into Nairobi, into before Nakuru is what?
Gilgil.
Naivasha. Yeah, no, the counties. Nyandarua, into Nakuru, into all the way up to Siaya. And they moved back.
You know, it's interesting that you brought this up because the day before, or Sunday, right, is when we heard CS Kagwe talking about the fact that, you know what, you can't expect that we'll still be policing or chasing after grown human adults and saying that, you know, we're saying don't cross, but we still have people crossing. The only way that people are crossing, let's just be honest and call it as it is, a spade and not a big spoon, right? The only way that people are crossing the county borders is because they're bribing the police.
Even
right? Yes.
So the grown humans are bribing grown humans.
Exactly.
Look, Eric.
Even the panya routes that we're talking about are known by the police.
Ndu is saying something that we all know.
Yeah.
The moment you bring restriction to this country, what you've done is opened a business opportunity.
Yep.
Very clean.
So now it's a question of, okay, let's arrive at an arrangement. Okay, you want to cross. This is what it costs.
Willing buyer, willing seller.
It's just like at the
of
border
service.
for Tanzania. You're in Tanzania.
You want to cross?
You want to cross.
Kenya?
In Tanzania, you don't have COVID. You get to the border, you have COVID. They tell you if you want to not have COVID, there's a way. And this way is 2,000 shillings Kenya money. You pay the 2,000 shillings and guess what?
You're COVID
in
free.
Kenya, you're COVID free. Period.
Even your vehicle is COVID free. So you need not worry. But on the other hand, if you don't want to pay, you will be
You will
COVID
remain with
infected.
COVID. You'll have COVID, my friend. So,
And you'll keep having COVID.
But what is it about Siaya though?
that did what?
Eh? People who are crossing and going to Siaya are so many for burials.
Ask yourself a very simple question. It's not just here.
Is it traditional?
That's what's being reported.
But it's not the
It's
first time.
Luos being buried. People get buried at home.
Ni sawa.
Hiyo tuanze hapo.
But we have not heard very many people being caught up heading towards Kisumu or Homa Bay or the others. Siaya.
Bro,
How many have we heard of Siaya? In fact, people coming from Mombasa crossing to go and bury in Siaya.
just this last week, I know of a friend who went to Homa Bay to bury, was it an uncle? He actually went very early in the morning and was back by evening.
Is he a close relative? Like, did he have any
He's a
documentation?
friend of mine. I didn't ask those details.
But,
But
just
he's not the only one.
Naenda mazishi.
He is not the only one. They're escorting the body. The thing about Mazishi, Matanga, it's something that even the police understand. They understand. People need to go and bury it. Is okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Look,
I think it's about the number of people, though. It's the
Actually-
number of people who you're allowing to pass. That's what the police should be concerned about, not necessarily the body. The other day, there was somebody who crossed with an empty coffin. Remember? And that driver is still somewhere in quarantine,
so you think.
in isolation.
So you think.
Kelvin.
Well, that one. Calvin is
Kelvin
complaining.
is still in quarantine. By the way, CT.
So you think.
Well, like they were talking about him the other day. He's still
Kelvin
there
is in the
waiting.
news.
He's waiting for double negative results. He was
po-
in the news.
He tests positive today.
Negative tomorrow. Then he'll test
Positive.
negative in the morning.
Positive in
Next
the evening.
24 hours, he's positive.
You know, we are actually asking the wrong question if you ask me. Take any newspaper from even last week. Start with the briefing that the Cabinet Secretary for Health has. Those people are almost climbing on each other's backs. They are this close. Social distancing went out of the
Zero.
window a long time ago.
Zero.
Every other meeting or press briefing that you see, that social distancing that we took for granted, where it went. If you want an indicator of what the mindset of Kenyans with regard to COVID is,
That's a one direct one.
you just look and see. It's not a question of some people who've lost a loved one and who need to transport the body. It's Kenyans in general.
Yeah.
Look at it. On Monday morning, where is full? Is it Great World? Small World.
Small world.
Blue Post. Traffic like this.
People trying to
Friday
come back.
afternoon. People trying to get out. And they go. It's not as if you're told all of those people to... how do they get through?
They pass.
They
go,
pass.
They come back.
Somebody has been seen. They pass. And then now you want to tell them on Monday morning they can't come back. They left on Friday.
I saw a meme going around. In March, people had the word COVID and they would scamper for safety. Now, people are just poking COVID in the eye. Like, wait, when you're COVID. Between March and June, Kenyans and COVID.
See, the combination of being cooped up and having to worry about just basic survival, not having jobs, and those who had jobs having those jobs sort of like fleet and fly away before their very eyes.
Hakuna.
Again, to understand it from at an international level, consider the issues that have arisen with the demonstrations about racism. Was it social distancing? Zero.
Gone.
The world over, zero. It went.
Yeah.
Now you can talk about an upsurge of infections and what have you, but it went. The way the human mind works, my friend, is not really that complicated. But the moment the disease gets to a point where it is no longer considered a big danger, it doesn't mean it isn't there.
It's still there, but
But the mind doesn't register as behavior will go back to factory settings.
let's go to the top of the hour, and then after the top of the hour, you'll tell us today's proverb. 0719-012-600 is the number to call and join this conversation. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We're live streaming on Spice FM, KE on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Good morning. It is now 7 o'clock.
Taking a look at what it looks like right now, it's looking good on Kangundo Road today. We saw some issues yesterday, and so far this has not caused any problems now. Thika Road and Mombasa Road experiencing some fog, so people are moving a little bit slower than they normally would because visibility is lower. All right, coming into the CBD from all parts of the major highways is not causing too much of a problem today. Let's take a quick look then into Mombasa and what's going on there. Coming in from Mariakani, there's a bit of a hold up trying to then get into town, but that will open up in a short while. It's just early morning traffic as we expect it to be. All right, getting out to the airport from Kisumu on Obote, a little bit of traffic there as well for some reason, not quite sure why, but as it is predicted, this won't last too long either. Getting in and out of the CBD won't be too much of an issue. So traffic seems to be not so bad right about now. We'll take a look and see how that may change in a short while. If you do see something that we should know about, spot it, let us know, and we'll spread the word. Spice FM KE on Twitter. That's how you can get in touch with us. See what traffic looks like this Tuesday morning.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging,
So before
deep,
we actually take
controversial.
today's proverb, there's someone who's calling in and wanting to see if they can win this 1,000 bob worth of airtime from Safaricom just because you've dialed star 550 star 2 hash to read the standard newspaper online, not online, but on your mobile phone for only 20 shillings. You don't need to download any app. You don't need to worry about data fees or signing up. The story that I'm asking about is between page 1 and page 5 of the Standard this morning. It's a story whose script sounds familiar. Hundreds were promised millions in returns from a digital farming that never was. It's a company called eFirm that has basically gone under, and Wallace Moura, who's the chairman of the company, has confirmed that the society collapsed and the offices have closed after squabbles within the board and among investors. There are people who had paid in 100,000 shillings. Somebody had even invested 450,000 shillings. Somebody else 5 million shillings. The one for 100,000 says he was understanding that his return would be 400,000 shillings over the next 5 years. Hey, so what page is the story and what is the headline of that story? William, good morning.
Good morning. The headline is billions lost in another farm scam.
Billions lost?
In another suspected farm scam.
Oh, yes. Okay. What page is that story?
That is page 5.
You got it right, man. William, congratulations. Congratulations. Just by dialing star 550 star 2 hash, you were able to read the Standard newspaper, right?
Yes.
All right. So, William, you are going to receive 1,000 shillings worth of Safaricom airtime. Just stay on the line, speak to our producer, John, and then he'll pick your details. Congratulations, my brother.
Thank you so much.
All right. City, today's proverb.
A chief is like a rubbish heap. Everything comes to him. It's a Malawian saying.
Okay. Okay.
Okay? Okay.
Everything comes to him.
Everything.
Good,
The
but
bad, the ugly.
mostly rubbish. You don't throw away good stuff.
Unwanted stuff.
It's always the unwanted.
You think people bring problems that they can solve to the chief?
But sometimes you throw away things by mistake. And in bringing the problems that you think are just problems, you might sometimes release something that you maybe didn't want to release to the chief. That's how sometimes you throw away something in the dustbin you didn't intend to, but you did. It happens.
Sometimes, like today, we are very philosophical.
Hey. Baby birth water. Hey. Ati the Malawians are saying a chief is like
A rubbish heap. Everything comes to him.
bus.
But, as we were philosophically told, not always the case.
Not always the bad stuff.
No, sometimes you throw away something by mistake, philosophically speaking.
Sometimes you can actually go to the chief thinking that you're throwing away the bad stuff. Could be you're throwing away the good stuff. And you end up entangling yourself. Unatoboa siri, so you're the one who stole that cow.
Okay.
All right. And it's that,
And you brought yourself.
and you brought yourself.
Thank you.
We have been trying to figure out how that cow was stolen because so and so has been complaining about that cow for so long, and then you just come there and you start complaining. Like that cow that belonged to so and so. When I took it,
Voila.
Okay, thank you.
yeah. Uhuru emissaries have visited the CJ in a mission for truce. Shuttle diplomacy to quell the bad blood between the judiciary and the executive has started in earnest, with two high-ranking senators holding private talks with Chief Justice David Maraga. Insiders within the judiciary, who sought anonymity, say the majority leader in the Senate, Samuel Pogisio, and the majority whip in the Senate, Irongo Kangata, were under instructions to know what exactly the outburst by the judiciary's head was all about and how the impasse could be resolved. The senators are expected to report back to the president on what transpired, and there's a proposal for another meeting to iron out outstanding issues. So we are starting to get there. So basically, can you go and find out what's going on
What's
here? Going on?
You actually honestly think the government doesn't know what the issue is?
Of course, the government knows what the issue is.
But they're saying, let's talk now.
The government knows. This thing is boiling. When it goes into a point where the Law Society of Kenya Council sits down and unanimously agrees that we are going to censure the Attorney General and the Solicitor General, and we want to scrap them from the role of advocates. Hey. And then the Senior Council also starts saying the same thing. And you're hearing all others, senior people saying, look, forget about the president for a while. Who's advising the president? Is it a lawyer? Is it somebody who should know better? Okay, the Attorney General is the chief government legal advisor. His deputy is the Solicitor General. Let's deal with these two. What kind of advice are you giving the president? When we see the executive not obeying court orders, and yet you're represented in court, what exactly is happening? Let's deal with this too. This thing.
It has got momentum nicely. It's very good.
It's going.
Very good.
Going. Do you see a meeting happening between the president and the chief justice? It's likely that a meeting is going to happen.
I see a meeting taking place with the Judicial Service Commission and the president. Yes. Not necessarily
The chief justice
No.
alone.
No. Because the Chief Justice did not appoint the 41 judges. It was the JSC. So if you want to have a discussion that is meaningful, that discussion ought to be, those people are not many. Have that discussion with
them.
Yes.
Sit them down.
Yes, and the president can bring the Solicitor General and the AG and whoever else he wants to bring to that meeting. And
Maybe it will be a meeting to reset the relations. Remember, the former Chief Justice, Dr. William Mutunga, told us that they had reached a point where they had agreed, when we are interviewing for positions in the judiciary, we will be coming, before we make a public announcement, we'll be coming to you to give you an opportunity to participate in this, because we understand and we have to be very cognizant of the fact.
Did that process take place with this 41?
With this particular one, it appears not to have taken
Not
place.
to have taken place.
Maybe this meeting now should be the one to come. But we had agreed, guys. We had agreed this is what's going to happen. Remember, though, the people in that JSC are not the same ones here.
No, they are not.
The Attorney General is different. The Chief Justice is different. The members of the Judicial Service Commission are different.
True. there are certain functions that are located to the office, to the position. It isn't if the office of the president agrees. It is not the president who is agreeing. A presidential decree is not Uhuru's decree. No, it's the office.
Yep.
And the powers vested in that office.
Yep.
So if the JSC had come to some understanding, a quiet MOU about how things should actually be done,
Yep.
then unless it's a fundamental change, it behoves the then current JSC to follow. That's why we call these things traditions.
Yep.
Yes. The tradition is
Maybe there
that
was no proper handover. Because as you understand, this is not a formal process. It is just a process that is introduced to smoothen things up.
it was a wise process, because one could even argue that this is what you call public participation. And remember, there are those who've also argued that the media was not necessarily allowed to actually be part and parcel of this process.
Of this process, in terms of, observing
They were allowed
and
to take
reporting
pictures
thereafter.
at some point,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yes. All I'm saying is that if you are going to look at the situation and ask yourself where things went wrong, things went wrong from the very beginning. Again, as the former CJ actually pointed out, the president is privy to information that the JSC may not be.
Yeah.
So when he says, I have an issue with these people, please take it that he knows something that you may not know.
That you may not know. And he may actually now, it's true, he may have all that, but I think it's important also for him to try and explain himself. Yes, you have all this information. Yes, you have received information from NIS. Remember, like the former CJ was telling us, before somebody is invited for that interview, there's a technical vetting process. Do you have clearance from the Higher Education Loans Board, from your professional organization, from Law Society of Kenya, from the NIS, from the CID, Certificate of Good Conduct, from all of these organizations, from KRA, from EACC, you have come with all these clearances. If NIS had given you a piece of paper, then the JSC will assume that, all right, NIS had vetted this person in Forever Forum and they have cleared him. Now, if NIS has more information that they thought, well, let's just clear this person, but let's go and tell the president, we've cleared this person, however, expect maybe there could be some repercussions in the future because of their character or because of their past conduct or anything. And the president considers this and says, for the greater national good, I do not want to appoint this person into the position of a Court of Appeal judge in the judiciary. Okay, why don't you find a way of communicating this? I mean, and it's also possible. Remember, the chief government advisor is the Attorney General who sits in the Judicial Service Commission. I think there's a lot of dishonesty from both sides. From where I sit.
Maybe you see you see this is where the issue really comes in. What is the relationship of the AG and the CJ?
Yeah.
Forget the offices.
The two individuals.
Yes.
These two individuals actually have a history. History number one is that they are contemporaries. All right. The CJ is about 2 years older than the AG, Kihara Kariuki. Before he became the Attorney General, Kihara Kariuki was the president of the Court of Appeal.
Yes, he was.
Right? And he became the head of the Court of Appeal after Justice Riaga Omolo, who was the chair of the Court of Appeal, was removed from office through the vetting process by the Sharad Rao Commission. Okay? The Sharad Rao Board. So Riaga Omolo left office and there was a vacancy. That vacancy required that judges of the Court of Appeal elect their new leader.
Yes.
2 people campaigned for this slot. One of them is Kihara Kariuki. The other one is David Maraga. Kihara Kariuki won with a slight margin over David Maraga. Kidogo, David Maraga becomes Chief Justice.
As they say, punde si punde.
Punde si punde. David Maraga is appointed by the Judicial Service Commission, becomes Chief Justice. And Kihara Kariuki remains head of the Court of Appeal. Punde si another punde, Kihara Kariuki becomes the Attorney General and leaves judgeship to go to the executive as the Attorney General. And David Maraga is
Chief Justice.
So they know one another.
So punde is still not becoming punde.
Punde,
here.
and there's another punde here now that is unfolding. There's a punde here that's unfolding.
Because, when the Chief Justice decides to address the President directly, you actually wonder whether all protocols have been followed or whether they've been abrogated. the reason why I'm saying this, the Chief Justice ought to be the buffer that the CJ uses in these matters that he wants to address with the president. Because, after all, it's the AG who addresses or advises the president on these things.
Yeah.
Yes. So if all isn't well in that particular relationship, then we will see what we are seeing. It's out in the open, and people are having a nice, decent tiff.
Aye. Aye. And this one is unfolding really badly. Also, though, there has been a scheme to undermine the judiciary for a while. There's whatever organization this is that is quite amorphous. It doesn't say who they are, but they produce some very interesting social media content. You've seen it.
Oh, they were very well prepared.
Videos and graphics and text and graphics. And every time there's something about the judiciary, it's unleashed. For example, when the Akasha brothers were jailed in the States, there was something. Oh, remember, this judiciary had failed to take any action against these people. Look, they've gone to America, and punde si punde, they're in jail. Now, again, they unleashed a new one on the Chief Justice, going straight. I mean, it's a very direct attack on him, on his character.
Oh, no. It couldn't be more direct. And they're really beautifully done. Those
Choreographed, I mean, to a T in
no,
this
but
case.
they're well,
They're
very well
presentation
put
is
together.
Nice, it's put together.
It's going to grab your attention when you start
and even
having
the
a look at
information
it.
you look and you want and you say, okay. But you know what it reminds me of? What is the name of
Cambridge
Analytica? Yes, comes to mind. Because, man, they produce some, if you're talking about just presentation, the doomsday scenario about Raila.
Yes.
Hey, yeah.
It's
It
epic
was like
stuff,
a
huh?
movie. You know those end of the world movies?
Yes. A Raila presidency
See,
would usher in
This. You say,
Armageddon.
Kabisa Armageddon. And then some. So, it's clear. Remember, we've had this discussion before. And there's always been this talk that the bottleneck against the fight against corruption is the judiciary.
Yep.
That's another.
Very well choreographed
Yes.
narrative. And it keeps coming up. Every time you talk about corruption, but the judiciary.
And you look and you say, but that's not entirely true. That's not entirely true.
Yep.
The judiciary may have its issues, but we've seen the judiciary coming out fairly strongly in this fight. You know, just because there's an individual within the judiciary who pulls a funny stunt, that's that individual who's pulled the stunt.
Not the institution.
No,
Not necessarily the
it isn't.
institution.
It isn't.
Let's continue this conversation after we take a look at weather. 17 minutes after 7. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room this morning, C.T. Muga, Nduoko, and Eric Latif.
All right, at 14 degrees, Nairobi stands at mostly cloudy conditions. Showers coming in later with highs of 21 and lows of 13. It's cloudy in Nyeri this morning at 14 degrees, highs of 21 with showers forecasted for the afternoon. Nakuru is mostly cloudy at 14 degrees, highs of 23 and lows of 13 with thunderstorms later on. Eldoret this morning is mostly cloudy. We will see highs of 20 and lows of 12 with showers going well into Wednesday morning. All right, Kisumu is mostly cloudy. At 19 degrees, highs of 26, also will be a wet afternoon. It's going to be showers recorded in Kakamega later on with highs of 24 and lows of 15 with mostly cloudy conditions at the moment. All right, let's take a look then into Malindi where it's mostly cloudy at 26. We'll see highs of 28 and extremely cloudy conditions later. In Mombasa, it's mostly cloudy this morning at 25 degrees. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 24 with mostly sunny conditions. Kampala at 18 degrees is mostly cloudy, highs of 24 with rain conditions later on. Dar es Salaam at 22 degrees is clear this morning and will remain just so with highs of 31 and lows of 20 through most of the day. Johannesburg at 5 degrees is clear skies for now and will go into showers later with highs of 8 and lows of 3. And finally, for now, in Lagos, it's clear skies at 26 degrees with highs of 31 and lows of 25.
Well, this one is going to be messy, it's going to be noisy, it's going to be loud, and everything else in between. We're talking about this push and pull between the judiciary and the executive, and we've seen it unfold in various other forms. Just before we went to the break, we're talking about those well-produced social media clips.
Oh, they really are very,
and
very
graphics,
really
and
well
they and you know they have there's what they are communicating, and the communication is very clear. That's the judiciary. Judiciary is the problem in the country.
I mean, there's some people who've mastered the art of communication. They've mastered this art of communication, and they do it in such a way that it's going to grip your attention. And before they actually send the message, they've sent the message. There's something that they're trying to say, and they're very deliberate in how they do it. And it's choreographed to the point that you have to be deaf, dumb, blind, and maybe a little bit off your rocker if you didn't understand what it is that they were trying to tell you. So it was very clear here.
What do you think is the bedrock on which misinformation is actually founded? It's precisely that. It gets your attention. It tells you something that you listen to and say, no, this sounds like it's true.
There's some elements of truth.
Yeah, and then
You're
conditioned.
Placed.
Yes.
You're conditioned by the time you're done.
You then accept everything.
And you accept it as it is.
Yeah.
Deliberate in this case.
Yes.
They're very brilliant.
Remember, one of the things that one saw in the Second World War, Germany understood this thing perfectly. They even had a ministry of propaganda. They understood this. In the days of Eastern Europe, propaganda was a subject that was taught in schools. Just like we teach Kiswahili.
It had to be.
It's taught. So you understand that there is a way in which you craft messaging.
Yeah.
For instance, if you look at the headlines today in the Standard, and you say there seems to be a difference of opinion between the ODM director for elections and the ODM chairman. Then there's no difference.
There's no difference. It's the same story.
Yes, there's no difference.
There's absolutely no difference. So the ODM chairman, John Mbadi, who is the leader of the minority in the National Assembly, says, ODM has not taken a position regarding Anne Waiguru. I have the feeling that senators have the ability to serve justice to the MCAs and the governor. They have the ability to look at the law, the accusations, and the evidence by the MCAs before taking a decision. Well, ODM's Director of Elections, Junaid Mohammed, who is also the minority whip in the National Assembly, says, I have informed him, that is Mbadi, his chairman, about the decision, and the party leader will also call him shortly about it. Like, he's the one who has the information. Maybe nimeongea na Baba, maybe Mbadi does not know. I've told him this is what Baba wants, and Baba will call him.
And if you look at the party hierarchy, who is senior?
It's Mbadi, of course. His body on both sides. And then Raila himself goes out to say, no. I expect, that due process is going to be followed. But the message has been sent to the rank and file. Message has been sent to the rank and file. This is what you're calling the art of deceit.
Why is everybody scrambling to protect this woman?
They're not scrambling.
They're not?
No, they're not scrambling.
Okay.
What's happening?
Why are they walking lankily towards protecting Waiguru?
Let me ask you
Why
a
are
very
they
simple
strolling slowly?
Let me ask you a very simple question. How do you think these matters, political, especially thorny matters such as this one, how do you think they are settled?
It's a give and take.
Thank you.
It's a negotiation.
Yes. The give and take goes beyond negotiations, if you ask me. Okay? Because negotiations need to be oiled. And there must be a profound reason beyond the person's charming personality and or winning personality for them to decide they will receive assistance. One, there must be some support from some really high quarters which says this person requires support. Now, how we go about it? Now, then the negotiations begin. And it usually begins with a very simple, it's a two-word statement. How much?
Bas.
Thereafter, the discussions can continue. At the end of the day, the politicians in this country don't do things for free. It's not complicated.
So money is
money is going to feature somewhere.
Bribery and corruption is what we're talking about now.
Yes.
Essentially. Yeah.
It's going to feature
That's
somewhere.
what it is. And I think it's just
Is it not unfortunate?
Is it not unfortunate that we've forgotten what the issue is?
No, we haven't forgotten what the issue is.
We've just taken the issue that brought about all of this imbroglio in the first place, and we've tossed it out the window. The fact that the assembly came up with have we started talking about this, Senator?
Yes.
We started. All right, let's go. So now the fact that the assembly came up with a whole list of issues that they wanted to bring forward and say, you know what, based on 1, 2, 3, 4, we feel as if the governor had not fulfilled her duties, overstepped her bounds, and maybe in some cases behaved a little bit naughtily. We want to say, look, she should not continue to serve in office.
That has been heard.
Those are the issues. However, do you know what we're talking about now? Who's going to save her?
Yep.
Who's going to line up to say that she should be brought on this side or the other side, and to really talk about the issue at hand?
What's her real value?
To look at to look at the issue and say, okay, is she guilty or not? That's not the point now that that's not the point now that the conversation is going around. It's about who on which side with a higher or lower degree of power would be then in a position to save her, regardless of what the accusations or the allegations are.
You know, sometimes a little rap on the knuckles is sufficient. By the time you've gone to court, court has told you, sorry, and now you have to go before Senate and the whole country, and you become center stage news for some time. If indeed you were misbehaving, you've had ample opportunity to see the error of your ways and to change. But the discussion that we are actually having here is not what was tabled by the MCAs. We are discussing the redistribution of wealth.
Others made a little bit richer, so a decision can be made then in terms of how you essentially would be protected. No?
What exactly? So basically, what we are saying is, wait, constitution just stay outside.
Not even just stay outside.
No.
We'll call you when we are
Constitution here, window open.
Yes, but the constitution is not being overlooked. It's not being overlooked at all. At all.
The letter and spirit of the constitution is not being overlooked.
No, it's not.
It
No,
is being
it
overlooked.
is how? Explain
It is
to
being
me.
overlooked.
How?
Look, the letter and spirit of the constitution is that this matter shall be brought before the Senate, and the Senate shall sit and consider the matter on merit.
Yes.
Merit, and the senators will vote on merit.
Yes.
Not that there's going to be some campaigns behind the scenes to say, no, this person is valuable to us in this way or the other, or this person has given us some money in this way or the other, and therefore we should disregard. We are going to sit there and rubber stamp this whole process and show that we tick the boxes. Did we have a sitting? Yes, we did. Did we give her an opportunity to speak? Yes, we did. Did we give the people who are accusing her an opportunity to speak? Yes, we did. And then we are going to come up with a determination that we had come up with from the very beginning based on the decision that is made outside of the merit.
Okay.
That is not the spirit of the Constitution.
Okay.
Constitution, like Ndu is saying, window open.
Out. Okay. Because now we're having discussions about, okay, yes, we as a political party are actually going to support her. And one side is saying we've not taken a position. We're feeling the senators have the ability to serve justice. Another side is saying, I have informed him about the decision. The decision being that we as a party in the opposition are actually going to support her. Support what?
Please consider, for instance,
even before you
hear what the case is or what the position is, you're already throwing your support.
We know what the MCAs have said, but as the deputy president has clearly stated, she also needs to be given an opportunity to say her bit.
Exactly.
Yes.
She hasn't said her bit.
That's what I'm saying. That this is the thing. She hasn't even said her bit. The
and
forum
already
deciding where the support is. This is the thing. And we're saying here now,
and
for example,
where exactly are they? Is the constitution being abrogated?
What did you just say about distribution of wealth, City?
What I said, you heard very clearly. You want me to repeat it?
Yes.
What we are discussing here is not anything that you're saying. We are discussing the redistribution of wealth. Have I repeated it clearly?
Yes.
Almost word for word.
Now, is the redistribution of wealth going by the ideals of the Constitution?
Yes.
How?
I mean, it's clear to me that there's a misunderstanding here, all right? We have a situation where a governor has been accused of some wrong and has been impeached. Now, this matter has to go before the court that deals with such matters. It's called the Senate, right? Now, before this matter goes to the Senate, what we're reading in the papers is the jostling back and forth, people having their say, the usual drama that we find very, very common in our political arena. Is that not so?
That's so.
At what point does this abrogate the Constitution? At what point does this jostling I'm talking about? If you ask me, I'm seeing some very, very vibrant democratic discussions going on, even within the ODM party. One person says this, and he is the ODM director of elections, and the chairman has a... Surely, you're even seeing disagreements, differences of views within a party. Tells you that particular party is fairly democratic. People are allowed to differ.
Technically, it's not unconstitutional.
But
it goes against the ideals
there's something
of a constitutional... What
there is what...
That's why we talk about the spirit and the letter.
Let me explain something that I think we sometimes miss. It's the operationalization of the Constitution as it is. The moment the word freedom came into being in that Constitution, you have no clue how many other doors it opened. None whatsoever.
You're free to do as you wish.
Actually, it boils down to pretty much that. It boils down to pretty much that. Because the moment you say the certain rights are protected by the Constitution, essentially what you're saying, that anybody who has the might to say or speak loudly enough about an issue, one, you'll have a hearing.
Yep.
And B, if it's loud enough, it's likely to be true, simply because you said it loud enough. It doesn't mean, in all honesty, it is the truth. No. It just means that if you say it loudly enough and enough people agree with you, it will be considered to be the truth. Let me give you a case in point. We had an issue that I don't think has actually quite gone away about the Deputy Chief Justice.
Yeah.
Okay? She was accused of 1,001 things. There was one side that says, this one, she's being picked on. But when you read the accusations and the history, the chronology of the accusations, you felt, hey, would people actually make up all these things? But the other side was saying very loudly, no, it's because of the election and the decision that they made. There are those who would argue the same even now with regards to Maraga. These people went and
They're
voted.
revisiting.
And the president made a statement immediately after the announcement of that nullification of elections. It almost amounted to, I will give you the gift of sight, you will see. You don't know who you're playing with, you will see.
Let us see the traffic, okay? 28 minutes to 8 o'clock. Let us see what's happening on the roads. And we'll open up this conversation to you. What you're seeing, the kind of jostling by the politicians back and forth, well, yes, it's a political process. The Senate is a political body, and what we could be seeing is a political process. But is it the right thing for us that we are seeing? Is this really what we expect of our leadership? That they will make a decision purely based on political alignments? It shall not matter what merit is presented before the Senate. When the matter of Anne Waiguru is presented before the Senate, what will be decided is, what has the party decided?
We'll fight.
Does ODM want to stand with her? Yes. Does KANU want to stand with her? Let's find out. Does Jubilee want to stand with her? Let's find out. And that's all that matters. Is this the right thing for democracy? Good morning. 0719-012-600. Let's look at traffic.
A look at what might be going on Mombasa Road this morning, right around Cabanas, and then as you get to General Motors, that's where you're going to get stuck just a little bit. And then looking at Thika Road, superhighway between Muthaiga and Pangani, there's also a little bit of a hold up there, but it just looks like it's going to flow smoothly today. We're not expecting as much drama as we saw yesterday. So in terms of traffic, nothing major going on. Please do tell us in case you spot something. Let us know, and then we'll be able to get it moving this morning. Spice of MKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter.
26 to 8. Just to let you know that in the next hour at 8 o'clock, we'll be speaking with the U.S. ambassador, He is the man who speaks fluent Swahili. So we'll be having this conversation in Kiswahili, all right? So we'll talk about U.S.-Kenya relations, U.S.-Kenya relations in the fight against COVID-19. You know that there is a free trade agreement that's in the process of being discussed. This was a deal that was agreed by President Uhuru Kenyatta and President Donald Trump when the president visited America earlier this year. So what does that trade pact really entail and portend for the country? And also, because we'll be speaking to the American ambassador to Kenya, we have to find out what's happening in America. Their fight against COVID-19, the kind of protests and demonstrations that we are seeing in civil rights. Okay, so keep it right here at 8 o'clock. Ambassador Kyle Makata back to the Senate and the politics of the Senate. ODM is coming out clearly indicating that it wants to stand with Anne Waiguru in this matter.
Junet Mohammed is coming out and stating on behalf of ODM. His chairman is contradicting that particular coming out and declaration of defense.
Right.
Yes.
There was a story, a headline in the newspaper on Sunday that ODM leader Raila Odinga had met with Anne Waiguru in a night meeting. And then the following day, the ODM leader comes out and says, no, I have not held any meeting with Anne Waiguru. Right? And then, soon, punde si punde, we hear what Junet Mohammed is saying. And Junet is speaking with serious authority here, saying, this is what the party leader wants. Party leader
and then
wants
what does
us.
the party leader say?
And then the party leader comes and says, you know what, let this process just,
Let due process be followed.
Yes, let due process be followed. That is a statement that you expect the party leader anyway to say in public. All right. He says what we expect to hear him saying in public.
What if
Junet is
what if Junet is testing the waters?
On behalf of the
On
party.
behalf of, yes, it's okay. This is what we're let's see how this goes. Junet.
On behalf of the party. Why would the party be wanting to experiment with this?
We do not know which other governors may have to come before the Senate in such matters. And knowing how corrupt our governors have been painted
All over the country.
yes, and how close to the truth everything that has been said about them is, you would be wise to start testing the ground early about these things.
To see if when yours comes.
You want to see the lay of the land, because believe me, the number of governors who are going to appear before the Senate will be anything but few.
True. If we actually just look at the stories today in the newspapers, Salim Mvurya of Kwale is in trouble.
Yep.
The MCAs in Kwale
Have
want
decided.
to impeach their second-term governor, Salim Mvurya.
Okay, what did he do
Okay?
or not do? in this case?
Oh, you know all those issues.
It's the same thing. I mean, if you look at the issues that are brought, the fundamental difference usually is how well crafted and how well they presented their situation. But the Kirinyaga ones really presented their case.
Oh,
Yep.
nicely, with
Yep.
a lot of information that cannot be faulted. They went back and they had resources, they had proof, they had documents, this, that, the other thing. And they went as far as to make sure that no court process then would be able to stop
No,
what it
that
is
one
that they
was
were
well
able.
thought out.
Very well thought out
Which
and very
tells you
nicely executed.
There were a lot of people behind this.
Right.
This wasn't the action of just the MCAs. Remember, we've had two people calling in, and apparently they come from Kirinyaga.
Yeah.
They haven't had very nice things to say about their governor.
They're not speaking positively.
No,
about
they're
her
not speaking positively
performance.
at all.
Not
about the
health,
governor.
not healthcare, not.
These aren't politicians.
Yep.
And that issue of
It is
healthcare.
mwananchi wa kawaida.
Yes. Some even, one gentleman, Jeff,
From Kwale.
quoted his mother.
Jeff, please leave Kwale. Maybe you're the reason why governors. Yeah, the reason why governors are just getting censured left, right, and center.
You know, my friend, here we have a situation in Vihiga. Okay? My friend, 115 healthcare workers sent home without pay. 115 health workers sent without pay. Now, when
This is in Vihiga County.
this is in Vihiga County.
Right.
Next door. You know, Kisumu County is next door. Literally next door. Okay? The workers are on strike.
Yep. For the umpteenth time. Even they don't remember the last time they worked.
Yep. And the issue, the issue here is with the governor. So the question you want to ask is, this money that they're supposed to pay the workers, why don't they just pay these workers their money? Remember, the governor of Kirinyaga has been accused of the same thing. That
Fired the entire health workforce.
yes, not only did she fire, we're hearing that she also does not pay pending bills. It's an accusation that has been leveled against almost every governor in this country. And yet, the argument has been, or the point of discussion has been, the government has released money specifically for that purpose.
For that purpose. And this is unfortunate because this information was public, okay? If you just want to look at the nitty-gritty of it, the release of funds for the payments of pending bills or even the announcement of the same was not hidden. It was made public. And then to come and find out that on top of that, these bills then were not paid is a huge bone of contention for them. And to say that, look, these things need to have been done, or at least the promise of such then should have essentially been fulfilled. So the merit upon which they actually saw that the governor was impeached, unfortunately, this is a thing that when we see all of these other games being played out in the public in the manner in which they have been, it would seem as if the process then was being watered down, which is what my contention is to say here, that we need not forget what brought this into the ring in the first place.
Yep.
For the headlines then to be, all right, we are supporting or not supporting, whatever the case may be. The DP weighing in on this and also saying that senators, you also need to make sure that you play your part, but do so independently. It should not be, if we're going to teeter-totter on the realm of idealism here, to say that, you know what, it should be, without having to say it, that due process should be able to see itself out.
Yep.
Without any kind of influence, regardless of whether it is wealth distribution or not.
Whatever
dear.
It is.
My dear, if we're discussing politics, then what you're saying will be the visitor in the door who will not be allowed entry.
Stay there.
You know why?
We're at the dinner table. We'll call
exactly.
you when we
We'll call you
finish.
when we're through. And then maybe
Let's speak to Wilberforce, who's calling in from Nyamira. Wilberforce, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Eric Latif.
Morning to you, Wilberforce. How are you?
And then do Oko. I'm very fine.
Good morning.
Very fine, Ndo. Now, Eric,
Yes.
I don't know whether some of us or some of you are growing old to forget very fast. Because it is not news. I think when I was in my journalism class, I was told news is something extraordinary. And what our politicians are doing are nothing extraordinary according to me.
It's dog bite man.
Double speak from our politicians is something I have grown up with in this country. I don't know. I was a young boy when there was a publication of a meeting between former President Mwai Kibaki and former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka, which was then vehemently denied the following day. And the Standard newspaper and the editor then, David McCarley, arrested. I don't know whether some of you were here. But what followed later happened to be
The truth.
nothing but the Bible truth over the same. So today, if Junet, who is the director of elections in the ODM party, stands and says, as a party, we shall stand with Anne Waiguru. There is a publication that Raila had a meeting with Waiguru, and Raila comes out and says, no, there was nothing like that.
Yep.
John Buddy speaks and says, no, we shall not defend her blindly.
Yep.
And everybody speaks their own language.
Yep.
The problem is these are politicians. And I don't know why we are treating them as if they just came yesterday by some helicopter from somewhere and landed in this country. We're used to them anyway.
Okay, but is it right? That's the question that we are asking ourselves this morning. Wilberforce, when this matter goes before the Senate, because it's going before the Senate this afternoon, the Senate will decide whether to form a committee or to have the entire House interrogate this matter. Okay? If already, even before the matter formally gets to the Senate, the political parties are already saying we are going to side with the person who is accused, Is that what we expect? Is that, I mean, not what we expect, that's what we expect of them, but is that what we expect of our society?
Eric,
Yes.
the problem we have as Kenyans or as Africans, we have politicians, not leaders. You know, our political parties have got their own problems, and that's why even the constitution to them, let me tell you, today we are talking about social gatherings, for example.
Yep.
Where social gathering, if myself, Wilberforce, every time I wake up in the morning to go to work in my small car, being blind with a driver, I'm stopped to be asked of a mask, to be told to come down and sanitize.
Yep.
You can see the senior in brackets in this country. How many gatherings have you seen without social distance?
Many. On a daily basis.
So then, is the constitution in Kenya is until such a day when God comes down, if he has to, or send Jesus to Kenya, then the constitution shall make a meaning to the entire country. But as at now, it's just a reflection of what J.M. Karaoke one day said. We have a constitution that affects negatively the majority. But then does not matter to the minority who by chance have got enough to put on the table and even throw away without care. So then, like this, we have the chapter 6, leadership and integrity. Yeah, does it even have meaning if this is the way our political parties are moving?
That's a question we're asking.
The point, yes. So the point is. Until we Kenyans open up our eyes, both inner and outer eyes, both spiritual and physical eyes, then we are still in problem. Then to me, there is no need. We had to struggle, and they say we wanted independence, and the second liberation, and it's due the third liberation
of no
and the VBI and what have you.
Does it not go a little bit further than that? Because if you open your eyes and then you're able to see the problem, you're just going to see it, right? You're just looking at it. What happens thereafter?
After opening your eyes and you've seen the problem, now you formulate a way of dealing with the problem. You can't deal with the problem that you haven't identified. I'm blind, for instance. Okay, I'm visually impaired. The so-called constitution refuses me from calling myself blind.
Yep.
But that's what I am. Anyway, if I'm listening to my small radio, I have to, first of all, if I have to change from Spice FM to Maisha, I have to take my hand round, look for the radio, get hold of the radio, identify the buttons, then press 105.3 for Radio Maisha, or 105.2 for Spice FM for my region. But otherwise, if you don't open your eyes and see the problem, then come out with a solution, then weka huko bwana.
Bas. We are actually on the same page now. So Sasa, now that we have actually opened our eyes and we are seeing the problem, let's call it out.
That's what I'm saying. You must open your eyes and then after you speak.
And let's say that a political party is saying that it's going to stand by somebody who's going before a sitting of the assembly is not doing the right thing.
Is not.
Okay. So.
The problem, Eric, now, even before we got off, the problem is me, myself, as Wilberforce, even if I said today, until I stand and do something extraordinary to be news, maybe go to my county headquarters and strip, then I'll never be heard. And if I had 2, 3, 4, 5 people to come and strip with me, then I shall be heard. If you are here, Eric, I would have told you this. I want you to recite this. I'm a typical Kisi. Siasa iga? Toaka sana. Toaka sana.
Siasa iga toaka sana.
Sema nyote bwana. Toaka sana.
Toaka sana.
I have to understand what it means before I actually recite it. I just be saying
things here and I don't know what it means.
I may be insulting all manner of people and I don't even know it.
What that simply means, it simply means if it were politics, Kenyans, we are so good in politicking.
Right.
And not performance.
Okay. Thank you very much, Wilberforce. Have a good day in Nyamira.
Thank you.
0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Join this conversation. Politically, CT, like you're saying, politically, yes, it's that's a game that they play, politics. It's a game of jostling. It's a game of numbers. Even in the impeachment when we saw in the USA, in the lower house, different. In the upper house, it's different. It's people looking at what numbers do we have.
Yes, and how do we support our person?
Yes. Now
If this isn't a question of it's right or wrong. How do we support our person?
How do we stand with one of our own? This is it. Whether there is merit or no merit, that is secondary.
Different discussion.
And if we wanted this to become a judicial process, then we should have said that once it comes out of the county assembly, it goes straight to the courts. No, come on. No.
It's just as well that it goes to the Senate. You know, the only way you understand these processes is if they are in the public realm as this one here.
Yeah.
We know what the accusations are.
Yeah.
And we can see. You see,
And we can see.
Yes.
John is in Nyandarua. John, good morning.
Good morning, how are you guys? How are you doing?
Fine, thank you, John.
How have you been?
Okay, I'm fine, and Nyandaro is fine. Now, I want to tell you that Waiguru is going to be saved.
It's going to be baked or saved?
Saved.
Oh, right, okay.
Be saved. And it should not surprise you. As long as you're in BBI, you are going to survive. This is the point. And you should also wait for the BBI report to come. It will come the way they want.
Yep.
Because we shall have what they want. Even in 2022, the chopsticks that you are seeing is to ensure that they bring whoever they want.
So you have no role to play in this.
We are not going to have the one we want. You see? This has been normal in Kenya. And it should not surprise anybody.
So for how long shall we allow this to happen?
That's the billion-dollar question in our heart. And what we did is to let the politicians decide for us whatever we want. Because even in the Constitution, it is the politicians who decide what is supposed to be there. You see? For instance, now in this BPI amendment thing, the people who are there are the people who are heading that committee or composed of that committee are the people whom they want.
Yep.
If it was representative, it should be composing of about 47 representatives representing everybody in the county. Yeah. If it is the visits they were making, they should not have been visiting the county headquarters only. They should have visited at constituency level, so that everyone should have access to the committee to give his or her own views. This did not take place. Yeah. So we are going to have whatever they want, not what we want.
So we just, roll over and let it happen.
We are just going, that's common in Kenya. That's what takes place here.
Hey, John.
I'm starting you.
Okay. Thank you, John. Thank you. Joel in Kericho.
Habari ya leo bwana.
Leo tuko salama.
Hata mimi niko salama, nashukuru Mungu anasaidia.
Good.
Sasa Eric, kulingana na mimi na vile unajua, nyinyi mnajua tu hapo. Hakuna mahali Waiguru wanaenda. Kabisa.
Kwa nini?
Number one.
Kwa sababu baba amesema.
Sio baba, yeye kwa handshake. Nako kwa BBI. Na for your information, kama angekuwa ako pande ya Ruto. Saa 12 ama saa usiku angekuwa amekuwa kasete cha matoke. Mapema na ile kari ya kwanza ile unaendanga ushago. Country pass. So, hiyo tu ni story kelele nini, hakuna mahali wewe anaenda. Sawa. Tuneta kiongea akasema ati sisi tunatetea utetezi wa mama, tunapenda wa mama. Na pande ile mwingine wanafukuza Aisha Chumwa. Sasa anyway, have a good day. Hakuna mahali Waiguru anaenda.
Sawa. Tumesikia hiyo story. Thank you. Thank you, Joel in Kericho. Na ile gari ya kwanza. Early morning, if she was on the wrong side, she'd be gone. Now she's on the right side. Basically, that's what it comes to. It's political. It's a political process. When it goes to the Senate, it's a political process. It's what's going to determine this is political alignment.
You were talking.
So what's the point then of wasting our time sitting there saying, let's form a committee of 10?
It's not wasting our time. It's a process.
Yeah, why waste our
As
time
per
with
the
the
Constitution, remember, we're talking about the Constitution. Even the accusations that were leveled against her, those who leveled those accusations did not stop quoting the Constitution at every stage.
Yep.
According to the Constitution, this is what should happen. This.
The County Government Act, blah.
Or they use the Constitution to support whatever they were leveling against their governor at every stage. Yes. So, and remember, Wilberforce put it well. These are politicians, and this is politics.
Okay, now let's come to the politics of it. Okay, so here is a party, ODM, and ODM wants to present itself as the one that stands for the ideals of democracy, the one that stands for the fight against corruption, the one that stands for entrenchment of devolution, and wants to see that devolution structures work perfectly. All right. So here is one where the devolution structures are working, where the county assembly has gone through the motions, has brought the matter to the Senate, and these are issues that are being raised. You'd have expected an ODM to be the poster child here and said, okay, in fact, what we're going to do is defend the process and ensure that we shall have proper hearing, and ensure that we shall have proper debate on the floor of the House, and ensure that even this vote, we shall clearly see that people are voting on merit. And especially our members, we shall vote on merit. Why are we seeing that now, this kind of jostling, when a whip of the National Assembly is talking about something different?
The party leader has clearly stated that the due process, the very things you've described in detail, should take place. The chairman of the party has said the same.
Yeah.
The one person who seems to be stating something that appears contrary is the ODM director for elections.
Wilberforce told you, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. Robert Kipkemboi in Nandi, good morning.
Good morning too, sir.
How are you, Robert?
I'm fine, thank you.
Karibu, what do you think is going to happen in the Senate?
No, it's, okay, my contribution is basically the kind of president we are trying to set in this country. Because I think we have two weighing machines here. The weighing machine that was used for Waititu. And here is a weighing machine we are trying to create for Waiguru.
Yep.
But then look at it in this sense. Let me just be the devil's advocate. Yeah? What if really Waiguru was doing things that were not good for the Kirinyaga people? So at the end of it all, if we decided to save Waiguru in this sense, are we punishing the Kirinyaga people, or we are punishing the politicians who possibly didn't want Waiguru, or we are trying to save a country?
The people of Kirinyaga will survive.
No, it is not about the people of Kirinyaga will survive. Somebody was elected in Kirinyaga to take care of the resources that have been allocated to the people of Kirinyaga.
True.
And here is a case, we are trying to say what has been lost there is well and good. Let us have a person who will keep on siphoning the things that have been transferred to Kirinyaga, and life is good. I think it is unfair to do that, because let us look at it from the point of view of the commoner in Kirinyaga.
Yeah.
So that as we are doing these things, I think leaders also must think twice before deciding who to support and have them in power, just for the sake of it that tomorrow maybe that person will be a supporter. Because here is a case that PBI is playing a lot of things. It's coming into play. In what sense?
True.
We are looking at power next tomorrow, instead of looking at the commoner in Kirinyaga, who is possibly not getting water,
but
who is possibly not getting...
No, but you seem to sound as though the governor has already been found guilty.
I mean, the process, I think this is one of the problems, though, because, I mean, the process has not even taken place, and there's so many things that we are saying.
Process has started. It has been presented to the county assembly.
Yeah, but the same issue that we take even with parties right now who are already making these edicts when the process has not played out yet. Support is already being thrown in different
directions. We need to
directions.
hear her side of the story.
Exactly.
And then we continue.
Yes.
However, in all these cases, it depends on which side of the political divide you also support. Okay? Those that support one side of the political divide will now remind us about the Waititu case, and we'll forget that the Waititu case, there are those that wanted to save her or save Waititu purely because of the side that he stood. Anyway, we're coming to the top of the hour. In the next hour, we speak with the U.S. Ambassador to Kenya, Kyle Makata. Today's proverb:
A chief is like a rubbish heap. Everything comes to him.
A chief is like a rubbish heap. Every taka is brought to him. And then we also learn that it's not always that you throw away the taka. Sometimes you throw away the good things unintentionally. And then you come back looking for them. Niliacha, nilitupa. Okay. It's coming up to 8 o'clock. This is a situation on Miss Kenya's biggest conversation. 94.4 in Nairobi. We are in Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri and Malindi. And www.spicefm.co.ke. Good morning. It's 8 o'clock.
On Limuru Road this morning, coming out as far back as Limuru, the visibility on the road is extremely poor today. So everybody's being asked to exercise caution and use your lights, please. You may not see what is just ahead of you. And it's already caused a couple of accidents coming then into town from Limuru Road past Village Market and then coming down towards the Aga Khan Hospital and out into the CBD. So guys, you need to be very careful. There's bumper-to-bumper traffic on Manyanja Road between Kayole and then going towards Donholm. It's bumper-to-bumper. Avoid it if you can. Use another option for now. Outer Ring Road also bumper to bumper. Kangundo Road, where it was open before, is now shut down completely from Mamalusi then towards Outer Ring, and we see that there's an absolute gridlock there. Mombasa Road as well has joined, followed by Thika Road, where we see from the Muthaiga corner all the way to the Bangani underpass and then to the Globe Cinema roundabout. Everywhere you look, we're right in the middle of traffic hour, guys, so this is what we see at the moment. Please be careful, as we've been asking, and exercise caution where you can. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us see what you see so that we can spread the word.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of...
is broadcasting in Nairobi on 94.4, in Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi. We're receiving some issues from, is it Malindi, where there's some technical hitches in Malindi. Our engineers are working on that. We'll be back shortly. And also, any other place that we may have had a technical issue this morning, just let us know and we'll alert our technical department on this. Right, so let's talk U.S. relations with Kenya. Shortly we'll be joined by U.S. Ambassador to Kenya, Kyle McCarter. We'll talk about the fight against COVID-19, right, and Kenya's partnership with America on this and how America has come to our aid. Among the things that we know is that America is at the forefront in pushing for the development of a vaccine. It's among the countries that have come together. But already Donald Trump has said, well, when this thing comes out, we want to be right up there with it to acquire it. We know that among the issues that we are facing is the challenges, especially in acquiring our test kits. Because you're just being bulldozed out of the market by everybody.
So we are told.
By the bigger boys.
So we are told.
Yeah.
So we are told.
You don't believe it?
No, not entirely.
Not entirely. So there's some truth to it, right?
There may be some truth in it. Yeah. But if you look at the details, you may find that the process of procurement isn't quite as smooth as we may think.
Yeah.
And it isn't as though, if you find there's a problem in procuring something, you understand, the first thing you want to understand what this problem is so that you can overcome it. It can't be the same story throughout. How are other people getting theirs? What do they need? What are they doing in order to get theirs? And it's not as though test kits are just being produced in one place on the planet. No. There was a time when there's a hue and cry over test kits all over the world. All over. That is no longer the case. So, if one supplier isn't meeting your needs,
you go to the next.
Find some other supplier, for heaven's sake.
You've got to look at the capacity of those other suppliers as well.
You know, I am not even going to think about a possible solution other than that. That is not entirely the case.
It's not entirely the case.
No, it is not.
It's not a justifiable excuse to say that, so far we've only done 118,000 tests.
No.
118,000 tests. South Africa has done how many millions? 1.1 million?
1.14 million.
There you go.
This was as of yesterday.
There you go.
Right, it still continues to increase. Is that an excuse that we're going to continue giving?
And we've done a 10th. Where are they getting their test kits?
Yeah. And you know, if you look at other countries who have this, Egypt also is following the South Africa way and saying, you know what, we need to test our people, and looking at the population and saying, this is the way in which we are going to go. Nigeria is giving the same excuses that Kenya is giving. Oh, there's a lack of test kits around the country. You can imagine, with a population of almost just above 200 million people, Nigeria has done 150,000 tests. That is not even the number of a small suburb of Lagos. So you can just imagine what we are talking about, the seriousness with which we're dealing with this. And if you say that it does carry some import, then can we apply it? Let actions and words then work in tandem.
Yep.
Yeah, it's absolutely, if you want, because again, I mean, how many times are we going to say it? How many times is it necessary to repeat
Senegal next door has been developing test kits.
They've developed a rapid antibody test kit that at least will give you an indication of what is going on in your body. And then it allows them to make decisions based on that, which is where I was coming with this issue, is that the information that you're collecting by testing is not just so that you can tell people that certain number of people in the country have this disease.
Yeah.
That's not it. It is supposed to fuel then your decisions. It is information that then helps you make a decision. So testing is a good thing. You want to have as many tests as possible so that you have a footprint of what the country looks like. You want to do that, as in you want to. You actually do. It's a good thing.
So our fight against COVID really has a lot. Many answers to be sought, many questions being asked, and all those things, and seeking out, I mean, what...
It has a lot to do with the problems we've had for the longest possible time. It's just now, in an emergency situation such as this one, it's becoming glaring.
Yeah.
But this has always been the problem.
Yep. But also it's an opportunity. Remember when you had a conversation with the EU ambassador here and the others, the ambassador of Ireland and Switzerland as well. And they're talking about the kind of support that they're giving, especially in the arid and semi-arid areas,
and there was the ambassador
water,
to
Belgium.
Yes, there was this lady from the Nordic country, which...
Sweden.
No, it wasn't Sweden.
Is it?
Oh, no, that we spoke to?
Yes.
Finland.
No, it wasn't Finland.
What are you talking about, CT? Or that we had a discussion here, or that we spoke to here on the phone?
Denmark.
No, we spoke to
Denmark.
Denmark.
Yeah.
Yes. You see, they talked about the amount of money they had given us specifically. I'm merely adding the fact that there are countries that had given us.
Yep. Countries that have really come to our aid.
Yes, and some of this assistance is not necessarily money. It's equipment and what have you. Now, the story that came out in the papers yesterday regarding some of the donations and where they have ended up, that's not very difficult mathematics.
Just tells us what we as Kenyans are. We're joined now online on the phone by the U.S. Ambassador to Kenya, Kyle Makata. Kyle Makata has been the U.S. Ambassador here since last year. Ambassador, good morning.
Good morning.
Karibu kwenye show.
Asante. Furaha hapo.
Now, but Ambassador, we were talking about Kenya's fight against COVID-19. In fact, we're just talking about how we have interviewed other ambassadors, especially from the European countries, and who have talked about what kind of assistance that their countries have given Kenya in this fight against COVID-19. Let's start with that, the kind of partnership that the U.S. is offering Kenya in the fight against COVID-19. Anything that you guys are doing with us?
Well, I think we're doing quite a bit, obviously, but I think you have to put this in perspective. It's not always what you did today; it's what you've done for decades. And I think what the United States has done for decades is invest in the health of Kenyans and it's paying dividends today. If you look at the testing that is being done, over 55% of all the tests that are being run in Kenya are coming from laboratories that have been set up and established and supported by the United States. So, that was done many years ago because of the 800 billion shillings that United States very lovingly invested in the PEPFAR project to address HIV/AIDS. And we trained 34,000 healthcare workers, and specifically with COVID, we trained workers in every county just to prepare for COVID. So it's you can't just put a number on it and say this is how we've responded to COVID, because now we have, and we've spent as of now 5 billion Kenya shillings just on COVID, and but that doesn't mean we've stopped the other programs that are supporting healthcare workers in every county. And there's this talk of this money, call it vaporizing or magically going away. I mean, what we call leakage.
We call it leakage, yes.
Leakage, yes, right. And we got this hole in the bucket that mysteriously, comes about. And I think we have to be very clear here. United States, we just don't put money in wheelbarrows and put it on the street and say, take it if you want it. In fact, we don't write checks to the central government. In fact, we actually 90% of what we do is through local Kenyan organizations that distribute, whether that's food, whether that's test kits, whatever that is.
Yep.
We do that locally. And because we have to have that kind of transparency and that kind of accountability for the taxpayers. So, we're very tough on people. And I tell people that they claim, this money is being wasted. Show me. Send me an email. And tell it
show exactly where it is. It's being wasted.
Let me know. I'll go take care of it right now.
Ambassador, let's talk about the 5 billion that you say that you've spent so far in the fight against COVID. In what areas has this 5 billion been spent?
Well, that's in test kits, and I'll say this: these are test kits that are not fake. But there seems to be. Not only do we have fake news, we've got fake test kits on the market. So these are actually test kits that work. We're talking about equipment that actually works, that's not missing parts. We're talking about, again, training, specifically training people in how to deal with COVID. And then look at the research through Kimry and other organizations. This is one of the real. This is big news. Yeah. Kenya, the Kenyan researchers are becoming world changers. I mean, we invested, almost 50 years ago in these labs and in health, and now the Kenyans themselves are becoming coming up with research that's changing the world. Whether that be with HIV/AIDS, whether that be with malaria, dysentery, all kinds of things. I mean, you go to the Kimry lab, you'll see on their wall where they have brought about findings that are just changing the world. So, Kenya, if you really look at it, there's much more happening than just let's just say an N95 mask.
Than just the talk. So
the
PEPFAR fund that you mentioned, the kind of support that you've given the healthcare sector over the years, especially in the fight against COVID-19. Now, we understand that that program is coming to an end, and over time, the kind of money that you've been putting in...
Let me stop you right there. It's not coming to an end.
What's happening?
No, that's not coming. That's just, again, I don't know. Maybe that's next to the... I think that report may be the same purchased report in the paper that was next to the Wuhan lab director's facts on the virus. I don't know. I think it's similar fake news. No, we are continuing our investment in PEPFAR here in Kenya, and we have there are some programs that Kenya and the United States agreed that we would share the burden, and you know what, programs should get smaller. If they're successful, they should get smaller. Is it getting smaller? Yes, it is. In fact, should Kenya be able to take the whole burden? I'd love for Kenya to take the whole burden, because the objective here is to become self-reliant. You know, if you really care about someone, you set them free. If you really care about something, you let them do it on their own, and you encourage them to a point that they don't need you.
So what happens in this case, Ambassador Makata, if this person that you've allowed to do this thing may or has the potential to mess it up, no matter how much you care for them?
Well, I don't believe that's true. I go back to the researchers. These are men and women who are world class. That in the next pandemic, they may be the ones that someone comes to and says, "I'm going to give you $1 billion. I'm going to give you $1 billion shillings to come up with a vaccine," and they're going to be able to do that. So no, I think they are able and capable to take on the responsibility and take on the burden, because if I say this all the time, Kenya should not just be a beneficiary of foreign aid. I mean, it's very disrespectful to say, "Listen, you can't do this. So you need my help." That's not true. We are willing to walk down that pathway to self-reliance, working together with Kenya. But at some point, if you really care for somebody, you set them free.
Okay.
So we don't want to go in the direction of colonialism, do we?
As we understand it, with what you've just called, all right, so it's a reduction in terms of the amounts that are coming in through the PEPFAR fund so that the Kenyan government can take up some of the burden. And it's an agreement that you've had over time. Let's look at our blood situation in the country, because when you talk about blood shortage in this country, it goes straight into PEPFAR funds. That we got to a point where we don't know whether you had agreed that this was going to come to an end this soon, but by earlier this year, our blood banks are empty.
Right. That was one of the agreements. In fact, it took 15 years. 15 years for us to walk away from this, and this wasn't a notice given last week, last month, last year. It's taken 15 years for Kenya to take on this burden. In fact, we were very clear that that in this year that this would be the burden of Kenya, and they didn't put it in their budget.
So during those 15 years, were you working together to ensure that the government and the government officials in charge would then be actually working towards having this burden on their own shoulder?
Absolutely.
Like having the conversations and minuted conversations saying, all right, guys, next year, remember next year, we're not going to give you the money for it. So ensure that it's in your budget.
Listen, in other African countries, it only took 5 years for them to accept the burden. And it's taken 3 times as long for Kenya to accept this burden.
Why do you think that is? I mean, it's something that we've had a conversation about here, quite a lot. Why do you think it took such a long time? And even then, even as we speak about it, that cycle still has not been completed. Why do you see the same thing that you did in other countries, then having not taken root here?
Well, here's what I think. I think the United States probably should have put a focus on self-reliance much earlier. I think this is, I didn't come here from the State Department. I came here as someone has been working in Kenya for many years. And I think the worst thing you can do for somebody at times is just give them everything they need and not expect anything in return. To say, listen, I'm going to sit here and give you, it's like you're almost like spoiling a child. I mean, even with your children, you say, listen, it's you have to grow up. And I can't just give you everything. You have to start doing some things on your own. And I think I think the United States really should have put the focus on self-reliance a lot earlier.
Yep.
I always say I think we should go from aid to trade. I think we should. I mean that puts Kenyans in the position to take care of themselves. And I think we the United States in regards to aid really needs to work ourselves. We need to work ourselves out of a job. I mean, this is not about our goal is not to employ Americans to deliver aid to Africa. It should be for us to help Kenya become so self-reliant that they don't need us. And that's a tough process, and that's a tough discussion to have.
Over the years, Bon Ambassador, the U.S. has been accused, as other Western powers have been accused of giving that aid, but with too much expectation or too many controls in place. And in comes China, which comes and gives the same kind of support, well, not aid, but the same kind of support, but with less, controls. Like you said, you don't place a wheelbarrow on the road and say, if you want this, just take it. And yet, it appears like your competitors are doing exactly that.
Well, first of all, I don't refer to them as competitors. The United States is the competition. And so and two, if you put in, there's a striking contrast between the way we do things and they do. First of all, we deliver equipment with all the parts. We don't deliver equipment with parts missing. We don't deliver test kits that are fake. We don't deliver N95 masks that are out of date and spoiled. We actually deliver things that work, and we have no problem getting close with the Kenyan people. And this is what I have told everyone in my embassy. It's important that we get out of this embassy and we work side by side with the Kenyan people.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want to do for people that you care about is dominate them, control them, put them in debt that they can't pay. We are not going to be predatory lenders. And this goes to the Nairobi Mombasa highway.
Yep.
It's a highway that needs to take place. It's a highway that the United States is ultimately going to build at a third of the price of what China charges for roads today. We're going to do it at a quality level that you will not have to rebuild this 5 years from now. We're going to do it actually with Kenyan labor. Think of that.
What is the status of that road?
That would be big news.
This road has been in the works for a while now. What's the status? When is the groundbreaking ever going to take place?
Well, the project is engineered. Bechtel is the company that's put the investment into it. We're close. We're close to coming up with a financial formula that works for Kenya. We're not going to put debt on Kenya that they can't pay. It has nothing to do. I mean, the price on this road is actually, again, it's half of the Chinese and a third of what the French are charging for roads. I mean, these are expensive roads, and they shouldn't be. And it's the high cost of projects that has forced the debt on Kenya. And that's not always bad if it provides infrastructure that has benefit to the people. But if you can't service the debt, it's a burden.
There are those that have said, thank God for China, because now America can actually come and do a road for a third of the cost of what others are doing. Where have you been all these years? How come we haven't seen other roads done by Americans?
Yeah, and you're right. You're right. And I always start this discussion with the United States should have shown up and provided some competition to keep everyone else, keep their prices down. I admit that. Just like I admitted that we should have been focusing on self-reliance a lot earlier. I have no problem admitting where we've fallen short. But now we're here to provide competitive projects, quality projects with ethical standards that are way different than some of these other projects that have been built. I mean, if someone takes the brown envelope on one of our jobs, they go to jail. So the brown envelope is not a standard in a project that the United States is going to be part of. In fact, everyone knows if you take it, you go to jail, and you don't, and you go to jail in the United States. And so it's up to the United States now to show a contrast of how you do it right. And I believe we're going to get that chance. I think this road will be a great example of how you do it right. It will be a signature road that everyone in Africa will look to. Let's face it. By the time you get to Mombasa, you need a holiday. I mean, it's that 7 hours is painful, isn't it? I mean, this, and if you told me that I had to pay 800 shillings or whatever it is, or 400, whatever the cost is, that I could drive safely on a lane of my own, not having to worry about some matatu coming head on,
a truck,
I'd pay a toll. And especially if I can get there in 4.5 hours. So I think at some point that's going to take place, and here's the thing: it's going to be done right, and it's going to be something that both Kenya and the United States can be proud of.
Your Excellency, why would you say the U.S. was slow in coming to this understanding that you've now arrived at?
Well, I've only been here a year and 3 months. I think this is, I don't know. I think sometimes when you care about, I think a lot of people, when they want to be compassionate, they want to care about people, they do what's instinctive, and that is to give. And sometimes the best thing to do is not give, but just stand there and be with them, support them, and encourage them. And I think this is the way we're going to do this in the future. I mean, this is not just my idea. I think it comes all the way from President Trump. It comes all the way down from Secretary Pompeo. Self-reliance is built into everything, and every policy, every document that's coming from the United States today, which is a great thing. And that's big news for Kenya, because that means Kenya has the opportunity to become self-reliant. And we want Kenyans to be taking care of Kenyans.
So this is what you were calling from aid to trade. And actually now let's move into the trade area. And the conversation between our two presidents, President Uhuru Kenyatta and President Donald Trump earlier this year, has given birth into now these new negotiations that we're having for a free trade pact between Kenya and the USA. Now, we have seen what has been presented in your Congress by your government, and this is what you're hoping to get approved by Congress in terms of your negotiations. From that, we're seeing that you want free access for your agricultural products to get into the country, access for telecommunication, access for intellectual property. Basically, it sounds like you are going to be flooding Kenya with American products. And also, of course, Kenya is going to also be able to flood, if it can, the American market with Kenyan products. But it's very many people who are talking about this are saying this is going to look like it's a one-sided kind of move, where American products, American agriculture is going to come and dominate and dwarf our Kenyan agricultural efforts. And then when you come with finished products and such, it's going to kill our own industries.
Well, that's I can see why some people would be skeptical. I can see why some people will be jealous. Because here's the truth. The United States decided to do a free trade agreement with one country in sub-Saharan Africa. Yeah. One. And it was Kenya. It wasn't the people that are kind of annoyed by this, maybe some of the neighbors. Mm-hmm. We didn't choose them. We chose Kenya. Mm-hmm. And we chose Kenya because we believe Kenya has the leadership, has the ability to work with us, to grow our economies together. And it's going to be a huge benefit to the rest of East Africa. But the truth is, we didn't choose anybody but Kenya.
Yeah.
And we did that because we thought that there's enough potential here together that we can double, triple, quadruple the size of the economy together. And you think about it. We just made this. We made a really good trade deal with Mexico and Canada, the Mexico-Canada agreement. Mm-hmm. That same agreement is what we started with Kenya. For the same people that we signed trade deals with in South America and Korea, all over the world, we started with that with Kenya. So this is going to be a win-win agreement, no matter what. Some of our tougher discussions will be around, used clothing and things like that. This has a huge potential, so that to really boost the economy of Kenya, and it's going to be good for both of us. It'll be a win-win.
Right, Ambassador McCarter, are Kenya and the United States equal partners at this table?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think. This is a very balanced relationship. It's a very respectful relationship, and we've started it right. We started talking about this in the States. We're gonna start again here in July. The language has been put on the table as a starting point. Yeah. We will get to something that is modified and acceptable to Kenya and the United States. I mean, these things just take a little time, but I think we're both committed to a win-win agreement, and that's what it will be.
This is geared to maybe in some way replacing the current AGOA Act, which comes to end in 2025. Right. Is it likely that we're going to have this new free trade agreement in place before then?
Oh, it will, because I think we have about just under 5 years for AGOA before it goes away. We want this to supersede. We want this to be even better. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a lot of good things in AGOA. Honestly, a lot of things have not been taken advantage of by Kenya. We hope that under the free trade agreement, Kenya is able to take advantage of more of the allowances under AGOA that would be similar to the free trade agreement. And so, AGOA is not going to be. It goes away in 2025. It's not going to be renewed. This free trade agreement is going to supersede it, be better than it, and allow the economy to get even bigger than it would be under AGOA.
Okay, and then now let's come to the geopolitics. You ventured into it a bit and said maybe those who are complaining about these are neighbors and other countries in Africa, because USA has chosen Kenya to start off this kind of agreement. Yeah. Kenya is among the countries that have agreed with neighbors in Africa to form the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. Mm-hmm. And also Kenya is part of the East Africa Community, it's part of COMESA. And when you get into this kind of a pact with a giant like America, it is likely to have an impact on the kind of commitments that you make in the others, like the Continental Free Trade Agreement and the EAC and COMESA. How do we balance between these to ensure that Kenya is benefiting from that, but at the same time still benefiting from the relations it has had with its neighbors for many years?
Well, here's the thing. If when we succeed together under the free trade agreement, it's going to have exponentially more benefits to the neighbors than they've ever had before. I mean, this is if we are able to trade on a level playing field. I mean, if with the understanding that intellectual property is going to be protected with tariffs that are lower. I mean, this is not just going to benefit Kenya. This is going to benefit all their neighbors. And at the same time, we've supported the African Continental Free Trade Area. And we've pledged our support to that. We'll continue to do that. We'll continue to make sure that it reaches its full potential. And in fact, including through targeted technical assistance and trade capacity building. I mean, we're not saying we're not asking Kenya to leave any agreements with its neighbors.
Yep.
We're just asking for an agreement between our countries that's much better than it is today, and it will be much bigger than it is today.
If we can shift gears a little bit, Ambassador McCarter, and now look at what is happening in the continental United States. So many things are happening. We don't know where to start from. But then opening up that conversation, and let's start with, the protests that we've seen widespread around the U.S. It's affecting the U.S., but it's affecting the globe as well. What are your initial thoughts about the winds of change which seem to be sweeping across the states, especially when it comes to the face of racism, or as in-depth as racism has gone?
Yeah, I think here's the thing. I think we can do better. I say individually, I think we can do better. I think as a country we can do better. I think it's important to take an inventory of where you're at. The United States is looked to as the kind of the one that champions human rights, the one that does things right, that believes in justice, delivers justice. And look, we have to admit that this was not a good situation, and it was not one that exemplifies the exceptionalism of the United States democracy. And so we've got to get better. But I think it starts with us individually getting better. And I think we have to say, what can I do? And I think, when it comes to police brutality, it's inexcusable. Anywhere, anytime, by anyone. And we put a trust in those people for public safety, and that trust should not be, because I'm going to do whatever I can to make America better by making myself better, and I think we all have to make that decision.
Do you think that there will be some kind of change, really, to say that things will change?
Oh, I do. I think. I'll give you one small example. When I was in the Illinois Senate 10 years ago, it was a bill that one of my seatmates, my cohort, who was a retired county deputy, a sheriff, and he wanted to register the police, just like we have registered teachers that that have to hold to a certain standard.
Yeah.
So that if there is a bad policeman, a bad cop, you've got a way for them to take them out of the mix. They can't hide under the protection of a union. They can't hide. They can't be just sent to another area to misbehave there. And so this was something proposed 10 years ago, and now it's coming back up. And I think it's going to be, it wouldn't come up today if it wasn't for this situation. And I think now you're going to see my cohort and myself, who were Republicans. Now we have a Democrat who is pushing the bill in Illinois, and I think it's going to be a good thing that I think it'll go nationwide. And so, would that have happened if we hadn't had this situation? Probably not. But now you've got Democrats and Republicans working together to provide more accountability, and I think some good things will come out of this.
Talking about the election that's slated for later in the year as well, and the electoral process in the states, and there are those that have started raising questions. Last week we saw somewhere in Texas where voters were queuing for long just to access it. And looking at U.S. as a developed country, and you're sitting in 2020 where people are queuing for long to cast their ballot. What is happening to the electoral system in America?
I think it's what should happen. People should be more involved. They should hey, listen, there's a lot of people that don't vote and should. And there's a lot of people that complain and then they don't vote, which is wrong. I mean, if you really want your voice to be heard, you got to vote. And that goes for Kenya too. I mean, Kenya, the people, what can the United States do when it comes to Kenyan elections? We can do one thing, and that is we can help create an electoral system that guarantees the people of Kenya that their vote counted. It's not for us to choose the candidate. It's not for us to choose the winner. We have to be very careful here. This is not our country. We're visitors, and we're guests. But if we can help, if myself and the other countries that are here, the other embassies can help assure the Kenyan people that their vote counts, that's something we can do. But in the United States, people I think they're more motivated to go to the polls now, and for the right reasons, because they want to see some things change. And I think there should be a very high turnout in the U.S. elections come November.
Your Excellency, the Republican Party, if I were to talk about its history, began as the one party in the States that actually accommodated what we refer to as African Americans and people who were anti-slavery at the very, very early stages. In fact, if I'm not wrong, Abraham Lincoln was a Republican.
You're exactly right, and that's my home state.
So what exactly has happened over the years, the point where the Republican Party has morphed into a party that is compared to the Conservative Party in the UK, where you seem to focus more on supporting businesses rather than human rights?
Well, I don't think that's an accurate statement whatsoever. That may be the narrative of the opposition, and I think, and they can try really hard. They can't change history. You cannot. You can't tear down the statue of Abraham Lincoln in front of the Illinois State House and rewrite history. He was who he was. He did what he did, and you said it yourself. He was the one that freed the slaves in the United States. And you can't as much as you want to. You can't rewrite history, and just because you don't like the way the narrative is for the day. So I think again we've got to be inspired by people like him to fight for human rights, to fight for the ability for everyone in a democracy to be represented, and that's a lot of the things we do here in Kenya too, is to support and bring capacity to the democracy. And we do work. We do work with the MCAs in the counties. We do work with local groups fighting for human rights, and we're going to keep doing that.
Ambassador Kyle Makata, thank you very much for speaking to us. What would you say would be your last words in speaking to Kenyans directly?
Well, listen, I always say USA Marafiki, and I say that because I really believe that the United States is going to be the best friend that Kenya can ever look to. And we're going to do that because we believe Kenya deserves self-reliance. We believe they have the ability to take care of themselves. They don't need us to tell them what to do. But we're going to be the best friend they could ever have, working side by side, so that Kenya can be what I call the shining star of democracy and prosperity for the rest of the continent. I believe this can happen, and we're going to do everything we can to make that happen.
Indeed, and we also thank you. Thank you very much for the continued relations between Kenya and the USA. I mean, even your predecessors participated in really helping for the clamor for the second liberation of the country, the birth of a new constitution, the growth in trade, $1 billion worth of trade between Kenya and the USA, and USA is Kenya's third largest export market. So we are joined in the hip, like the president said at some point.
Right. Thank you for having me on. God
Thank
bless
you so very much.
Asante sana. Ambassador Kyle Makata is the U.S. ambassador to Kenya. He's been speaking to us on various issues, saying, well, we're here, we are working with Kenya in various ways, and changing the narrative from aid to trade. Not just giving money, but also let's find ways in which you can be of mutual benefit to our two countries. It's 8:45. Let's take a look at the weather and traffic. The conversation continues now. 0719-012-600. Phone lines are open. What have you heard the ambassador say that you'd like to reiterate and join a conversation on? Good morning. This is A Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning.
It's 15 degrees and mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi, highs of 21 and lows of 13, with rain coming down forecasted for later parts of the morning. Nyeri is cloudy at 16 degrees, highs of 21 and lows of 13, with showers forecasted for later. Nakuru at 16 degrees is mostly cloudy, highs of 22 and lows of 13, with thunderstorms. Eldoret at 15 degrees, we'll see a high of 19 and lows of 12, with rain expected for most parts of the afternoon. Kisumu at 22 degrees is mostly cloudy, highs of 26 and lows of 19, with showers expected later. Kakamega at 19 degrees, highs of 24, with showers also in the afternoon. Malindi at 27 degrees is mostly sunny for now. Rain showers expected later, with highs of 28 and lows of 26. Mombasa is mostly sunny at 26 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 24. 21 degrees are mostly cloudy in Kampala, highs of 25 and lows of 20, with showers expected later. Dar es Salaam at 23 degrees is partly cloudy, highs of 30 and lows of 22. In Johannesburg at 4 degrees, it's mostly sunny. Rain expected later with highs of 8 and lows of 3. And finally, for now in Lagos, 26 degrees and clear skies, highs of 31 and lows of 25. All right, let's look at what it looks like. Altering flow to all stops on Thika Road, Judah Road, or the exit. Everywhere you look from the beginning until the end is traffic this morning, and it's actually quite the situation. Waiyaki Way, the jam starts at Uthiru all the way into Nairobi, and it is bumper to bumper. All right, things seem to have started a little bit late, but traffic is quite a serious issue. All right, Matatus on Thika Road are zigzagging and trying to find their way through the traffic, but it's harassing everybody else and causing some drama there as well. Okay, so it looks that everywhere you look there's jam, and no butter to make things easier. We'll take a look at what it looks like in a short while. Spice of MKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Please let us know what you see. Let's try and make it a little bit easier for everybody else.
It's 13 minutes to the situation. We understand we've been having some technical issues here and there. The engineers are working on that. The live stream is working on Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, as well as www.spicefm.co.ke. So, U.S. Ambassador Karl Makata, and I could see you smiling when he was talking about the kind of assistance that the U.S. has given, or partnership that the U.S. has had with Kenya in the fight against HIV over the years.
They didn't, I don't know why it is, but the USA has not taken enough credit for what they have done with that PEPFAR funding. And PEPFAR was begun during a Republican presidency.
George W.
If you look at AGOA as well, in fact, this continent of ours has benefited enormously from Republican governments more than Democrats. Democrats say nice things.
They're good with words, eh?
They say really nice things, and they sound well.
So PEPFAR, the U.S. presidential fund, George Bush.
AGOA, when it was signed into law and then ratified again and given even an extension, 2004, George Bush. So all I'm saying is, you see, this is the interesting thing. PEPFAR in this country was not just HIV money. It wasn't just HIV care and treatment. The amount of money that the U.S. government gave this country was sufficient to have revolutionized our entire healthcare system.
Could have bought us a new kit of health. Throw away the old healthcare system, bring in a new one.
HIV money didn't just give you ARVs. No. HIV money gave you money for opportunistic diseases, which means any disease known to mankind. HIV money gave you money to build and equip labs with the most modern equipment. HIV money guaranteed that you could renovate and expand existing structures.
Yep.
HIV money also enabled the healthcare system to actually have people employed and paid by the same.
So did it do all those things?
It did everything I'm telling you, they did. And I'm saying they could have done even more had our thieving people not gone about their thieving ways. It was money that could have, when I say revolutionized, I mean revolutionized.
That's what I'm asking. So why didn't it?
I don't know why they haven't taken credit for it, because believe me, without the intervention of PEPFAR, the death toll in this country for HIV would have been astounding.
Had they not stepped in the time that they did, and the manner in which, because it could just be timing, but then the manner in which they made sure at least whatever it was said, whether it be by experts, whether it be by localese, whatever, they said, all right, let's fill in. So gaps were filled in.
Oh, they filled in gaps.
There would have been decimation of untold levels by HIV had it not happened.
Never, ever have been reached was reached because of this funding. They made it possible. They made it possible for people who wouldn't have known that such assistance existed. I can go on and on because I saw firsthand what this funding did. And I know what it did. And I know how it changed lives.
Yeah.
And yet, I would have hoped they'd be shouting from the hilltops about this. But they haven't.
They don't want to. Clearly, they don't want to.
Let me tell you, you see, where the problem arises now.
Can we pause a bit so we can hear from Emilda Cheng, who's calling in from Migori? Emilda, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
We're well, thank you, Emilda. How are you?
Very well, too. I was just listening to the ambassador.
Yep.
And I was wondering about the strategy in water.
The what?
And now, the strategy in water.
Mm-hmm.
As we are aware, right now we are having COVID-19. And with COVID-19, we need a lot of water and sanitation equipment to be able to survive it.
Mm-hmm.
Now we are wondering, what has the USAID team or the USA Marafiki team been able to do for us as Kenyans? What are their plans for us? Because we have not been able to see any impact. UNICEF is everywhere, but where are they? Yes, we want to know about their strategy in supporting Kenyans on their water strategy. And then we also want to know about the way they are implementing their projects. Are they going to be uniform? Because you see, when you talk about their trade and aid, they have rolled out the projects, but we wonder, are they going to be uniform? Because when you look at how they implemented some of their projects previously, there's a big disparity between the counties. We will give an example of what is happening in Migori. In Migori, for instance, same funding, same project, but the impact is so low. And then when you go to Kakamega, the amount of impact that has been there in the water sector has been so high.
Same funding, same projects.
Same funding, same project. So who is implementing what? Are they uniform? Are they having the same needs? Are they having the same staff? What is happening? So let them tell us about their strategy for water. Thank you.
Those are good issues that you've raised. And what we're doing is we're going to post this on social media as well and tag the ambassador. And he's very active on social media, so he's going to respond to this directly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emilda. This is a situation from Kenya's biggest conversation. Would you like to join in this conversation? 0719-012-600, talking about PEPFAR and the kind of impact that it has had on our healthcare system. And also where he's saying for 15 years, other countries, we decided to start reducing our funding over 5 years period. So in Kenya, we said 15 years. And we started preparing the government 15 years in advance. And yet we have seen it. We got to a point where the support that was going directly into our blood transfusion services came to an end, but we were not prepared to take it up. And there we were. We have empty blood banks and confusion at the management of the Kenya National Blood Transfusion Services, and a lot of back and forth, even going to court and out. Why would this happen? Is it humans?
No.
It's the humans.
No. This is Kenyan.
It's Kenyan? I think that was interesting.
Kenyan humans.
It's interesting because he did mention that the other countries where they rolled out the same right?
Yep.
And they said that we're going to start pulling back on our funding. And the same message that was passed here was the same message that was passed in other countries. Took them about 5 years to get in touch with the realities. It's taken Kenya 15. So you say humans, CT says Kenyans.
You know,
there'd be some credence I'd lend to that, because then why? What?
You know,
Kenyans, you're including our giraffes and our squirrels.
Go and sit down, Joe.
Yes, I am.
Talk about Kenyan humans.
Okay, Kenyan humans. You're going to tell us our grasses, well, and our trees.
Yeah.
You
our
see
flora and fauna.
You see, funding cycles are made clear at the very onset of one receiving that funding. You're told, this is the way this funding is going to be rolled out. And then you're given very clear, not guidelines, you're given specific ways in which this funding is to be used, what is to be used for. Everything is agreed upon from day one. And you're also told, we are going to start reducing our participation in this and this area and this time. And timelines are given. These things are detailed.
Yeah. And you participate in that because you're the one who's put in the proposal.
Yes,
so
yes,
it is
yes,
your proposal.
It's your proposal that
this is
the
how
funding,
we want to use the money.
Precisely, it is your proposal, and they're saying
you're not being told.
They're saying this is how we're going to go. But you're the one who knows your problem, and you've stated it, and they're saying we will help you resolve this problem of yours. And timelines are laid out.
But we are very good with documents, Kenya.
Hey.
That whole thing. This is our problem, and this is how we go about ending this problem and having a solution, and how glorious the future will look. And in fact, this is not going to be a lasting problem. We'll get to a point where we are self-sustaining.
Eric, you know what is really strange?
On paper.
Long before PEPFAR, we had blood donation services, and and they existed and they functioned, and one didn't hear of the complaints we've been hearing now.
Yep.
What one even had those days, I recall, as a student in secondary school, every year they would come to the school I was in, and from a certain class onwards, we would all donate blood. Because we could donate blood. Every year without fail. And it wasn't just in that school. It was in many boarding schools and even day schools they chose.
Yes.
So they had sufficient supply, long before PEPFAR. PEPFAR came in because in understanding the blood works were essential to understanding HIV. So they figured, let's support this aspect of it so that there are no complaints, there are no shortfalls.
Yep.
Now, why I say it's Kenyan is because it was assumed that this was a service that was going to last forever. Okay? Ad infinitum. Okay?
There'll be free money coming.
Yes. Did you not hear what happened when the funding not came to an end? It came to an end as it had been planned and had been communicated
over
and
15 years.
Yes. Suddenly,
people are running about like headless chicken. Let's just say.
Yes.
There are no drivers, there are no vehicles. The vehicles are in the garage.
Of course, there were vehicles.
There's no blood bank. There's
no
power.
Blood. There's no this. There's no the other.
The refrigerators are spoiled. There's no.
And you have equipment in 6 parts of the country, and suddenly there's only 2 working. Then you check, it's 1.5. It can't be 1.5. It's just 1.
Third world banana republic.
But I told you at the very beginning that this was a game. It was well calculated. Those humans, the ones who write those proposals, they're sharp. This was very well calculated. See, now there's money coming into the blood system. Yep. The World Bank is putting in money. Even PEPFAR will we can't really let our project that we have supported for so long go down the drain. We are going to put a little bit of money, maybe 20% of the money that was there before.
The truth of the matter is one of the things,
and the people will be swimming in cash shortly.
Yes, one of the things that the partners of the US don't do well like that, I'm referring to us, is accountability. I mean, it's as though we don't know what happened to the money. We do know.
Yep.
You can even trace it down to the individual. If you want to go to the nitty-gritty, you can get the person.
But nothing happens to these individuals.
No.
Did you hear what MacArthur said? We go back to that. And he said, you know what? Everybody who knows that they take a brown envelope, they know. As you're taking it like this, you're receiving it, you know.
You know the consequence.
I'm going home. I'm losing my job. So you know the consequences even before they're preferred upon you. So you know the cost of corruption. It's there. It's like a billboard.
For them, accountability is clear.
And key.
Okay, let's switch the conversation gears a little bit. Coming to the top of the hour, what are the consequences of today's proverb?
A chief is like a rubbish heap. Everything comes to him. I mean, They could have chosen something else. They could have said it's like honey that bees go to. Okay?
Yeah.
But a rubbish heap, traditionally, the things we don't want end up in that rubbish heap.
Yep.
So why do we compare the chief and his duties to this? Because it's true. Any and everything that people, from domestic issues, you name it.
Good morning. It's 9 o'clock.
Okay, there's been a terrible accident in Buffalo this morning involving a lorry and a motorcycle right around the Gateway Mall, so traffic is already building up there. It's going to take a minute to get into the city centre today, coming off of Mombasa Road, and so traffic now is a bumper to bumper. It already was, but now it has been compounded by this accident. As they try to clear that out of the way, the build-up is actually quite epic at this point. So Thika Road is still misbehaving. Social distancing by vehicles is not happening. It's a bumper-to-bumper situation, outbound and inbound now. People are actually standing on the road and watching their vehicles in amazement because they're not moving as they should. Gong Road, the problem is not so much vehicular traffic as it is water traffic. The drainage on Mombasa on Gong Road today is actually stopping traffic. So wherever you look, there's an issue. And today now, yesterday we needed a dash of patience. I think we're going to need sacks of it this morning. Spice FM KE on Twitter. That's how you can reach us in case you see something we should know about. We want to keep it moving.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these...
For everybody who's now joining in, had a technical issue in some areas. Thank you for keeping the faith and watching us online on www.spicefm.co.ke. Also, we're live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Spice FM KE. If ever we go offline on your radio, just take your mobile phone or your gadget and go online and you'll find us there. Or if we ever go off air on digital platforms, just go to terrestrial and you'll find us there. 97.7 in Malindi, 90.9 in Nyeri, Eldoret 96.7, Nakuru 96.0, 96, I've said 96.7 in Eldoret, right? 102.5 in Kisumu, 87.9 in Mombasa, and Nairobi 94.4. Let's shift this conversation a little bit to something that it's talked about. This is bar talk in Kenya. Property, bubble, bust. Those three words. And Kamugonda, Kaploti. This is a conversation that has taken center stage in Kenya, especially if you look at it over the last, say, 20 years or so. It has been there. It has been growing. The real estate sector has grown. The real estate sector has reached a point where those who are participating in it have used many words like it's now there's price correction. Others who are not participating in it are saying there's a huge bubble and it's completely bust now. And the properties have lost their value and gone all the way to the ground. In fact, the worst place to ever put your money is in real estate. What's happening? Today is Financial Standard. Today being Tuesday is Financial Standard Day. The headline for this pullout is How Centum Property Bubble Burst. Developers of the Two Rivers Mall and other high-end properties in Nairobi and Mombasa exit housing market after taking massive hit on investments with little return. So basically, it's talking about Centum which made a decision to claw back on some of the moves that it was making in the real estate sector. And what James Mwangi, the CEO of Centum, said, although our investment properties recorded a gain in value in the year ended March 31st, 2018, this gain was lower than that recorded in the year March 31st, 2017, which is consistent with the performance of the Kenyan real estate market. So this is what's happening in the Kenyan real estate market. Estimated oversupply in square meters in office space in the country this year is 5.8 million square meters oversupply of office space. Real estate's share of bad loans as of June 2018, 56.9 billion shillings bad loans held by financial institutions, all coming from the real estate sector. So what's happening to the real estate sector, CT?
Well, it's what happens to any sector that grows and grows and grows like this one has. But you see, the growth in this one that people keep speaking of is not really universal. It's not growth in the housing sector or the real estate sector right across the spectrum. It doesn't really feature in low-cost housing. No, not really. A lot of this has to do with high-end investments.
Yep.
Now, the problem with high-end investments, or one problem that I see, is they tend to be expensive. And for them to be expensive, it means you need a market. You need people who can afford that expense. I highly doubt very much if
the size of that market.
Yes. You see, if we are talking about investment in low-cost housing, chances are, if we had a problem such as the one we're having, there'd be a flooding, there'd be a rush towards low-cost housing, because that's what people would realize that they can now afford, as opposed to affording the high-end things that they could afford. And low-cost housing, that's where you'd find a vast majority of our population. But a lot of the investments that we speak of haven't really genuinely focused. The ones we're talking about? Those who are in that sector and who have been doing business in that sector right now may complain about tenants not being able to pay rent, but it's not that they don't have tenants. High end, you'll find you don't have tenants. Like the office space that we speak of. Those the spaces are going to go begging.
They'll stay like that for a while.
Or they're going to go there. In fact, this while, I could argue, is not even foreseeable. Because, ask yourself, if businesses are doing not so well, you've told people to work from home. What you do discover is that you can actually work from home. That's what you discover. The office space is meant for work. So if you can work from home, even if you need office space, do you need that much office space?
Yep.
The answer is no.
Do you need it on a daily basis? No.
No.
So you may find then a proliferation of other new businesses that offer the temporary
working space.
Working spaces.
Precisely.
Right? So co-working areas would come up and you decide, well, this place is available. If CT wants to come and work between 8 and 5, it's fine. If he wants to come between 8 and 9, it's fine. After 9, you can sit into the same place.
Yes, and they provide A, B, C, D for you.
Yep.
But if you're talking about working space, you have it.
You have it.
And depending on the size of your business, if you require 4 rooms, you'll get 4 rooms. If you require reception services, you'll get reception services. If you want internet, you'll get internet. And furniture, by the way.
For a meeting?
Boardroom, there'll be a boardroom. And it comes with furniture. So you don't have to bring furniture. If you have specific demands for certain type of furniture, essentially, they will provide for your needs. All you do is bring yourself to that particular establishment and to that space, and you are, as they say, ready to go.
Plug and play.
Yeah, good term, plug and play.
You like that one, huh?
I like it.
Right? I think if anything that we're looking at now, if what we are saying is that this real estate bubble that has just been floating above our heads for some time now, that is essentially burst. Whether it is current times that have dictated the explosion of it or imminent. And when I talk about imminence, I say, look at the way the world has been moving, whereby so many things go on one platform, like taxi services, where you don't have to own a taxi to use a taxi.
No.
You don't have to own a hotel to offer services of accommodation.
No.
So in the same sense that you don't necessarily have to own an office to work from one. If all indications were pointing in that direction, then the real estate market or the players in it should have also been ready for some kind of change. And when we're talking about the bubble having burst, I think that the world was pulsating at some point and saying, look, this is the way this is going to go, even with this. Because you see that, you're asking these high rents, you're asking for these high mortgages for these things, but you'll get to a point whereby nobody actually needs to own these spaces anymore in order to operate. That's the way in which the world has been going. It's so sad that this was not looked at from a different kind of lens before the explosion happened, before COVID entered, for example. So much so to the point then that individuals are telling you it's like an apple and you get 2 free. 1 month free, or 3 months free. See how you like it, and then we can talk about the rest. Because that's where we are looking at now. We have real estate, we have buildings that have been constructed. I mean, we were having a chat about this a couple of hours ago. Buildings have been constructed. They're not inhabited.
They're not occupied at all.
They're not occupied
Office
at all.
Space, residential
over years.
Space. However, now that you've brought those three words together, property bubble bust. Do you believe that there's a bubble bust in our property market in Kenya? Yes or no?
Yes.
City? I don't.
Explain yourself.
I don't believe there's a bust. Yes, there's a property bubble. And this property bubble has grown over the years, in terms of people coming in to invest in this, and more people coming to invest in it has driven the prices up. Many people who are participating in the property real estate sector in our country are speculators. And then there are very few developers who have come to develop, right? When you talk about a bubble bursting, it means that what you're holding is therefore valueless and worthless. I don't think there's anybody who's holding something that is now valueless or worthless.
Eric, not valueless.
Because when you talk about the bubble bursting,
the value just declines rather rapidly, rather steeply.
Yeah, and it comes to, let's say you lose the value of that property by 90%. I don't think we've even got into that.
No. I don't think we're talking about loss of it.
No.
This is what
because a bubble burst would imply that.
Look at what grew the bubble in the first place.
A burst normally means that the demand has gone down,
which is what we're saying.
That is really what.
And at the point where a lot of people were getting into the property market or into real estate, the demand was
really
very high.
That's why they
got into
and because of the fact that now people don't have in terms of money to spend as they did even 10 years ago, that is going to affect now your demand for such. So people are not going into those property markets anymore.
That is happening, yes.
That's so now that's when you talk about bubble burst, it doesn't mean that
let's compare with the bubble burst of other markets, like in the bubble burst of the US, the bubble burst in the UK. People were left holding something that was completely. Look, you have a loan, you cannot service this loan, you have this commercial property, you cannot get tenants for this commercial property, you have no income and you are not able to service the loan. Basically, you're holding something that you have lost complete value in. In the IT, in the tech era, when there was a tech bubble burst, it was the same thing. People had invested in something, and then suddenly what they had invested in was zero. In this country, we haven't reached that point yet.
Eric,
that's what I'm saying. I don't think we have reached a bubble burst in that sense.
What you referred to was as a result of recession. You see, if you look
the economy as a whole took a hit.
The economy took a hit. And this economy is taking a hit. I mean, we've had small shakes here and there. For instance, remember, we've had the international community living in this country for a very long time and in large numbers. Okay. Now, what this means, there are certain parts of this particular city, the leafy suburbs, as we refer to them, that never lacked for tenants.
Yeah. And
people paid money for houses. You'd hear and you say, you mean the people who paid that amount of money?
Yeah.
And the
people paying 80,000 bob for a single room, which is an extension or a 7/4 of a main house somewhere in a leafy suburb.
Yes. Because they'll explain it. And some people were able to afford it because the organizations they worked for paid for those things. Okay. Now, what we're saying is, the moment you have, say, some organization pulling out or the activities going down, the numbers of people who require housing and require certain services will also go down. That isn't a burst. No. That's just a decline. But when you have a situation where the whole economy, like this one now, is being affected, then it means the demand for certain things, especially you're talking about property, high-end property.
Yep.
The demand has gone down drastically.
Okay.
That is why I'm calling it a burst, because it isn't.
Is it followed, that demand going down drastically, is it being followed by a reduction in prices?
Yes, it is.
Like directly.
You have people who are offering it for free even.
Yes. But what's the percentage? What's the percentage of that? We've got to look at it in terms of percentages. Look at the few developers that we're talking about. Even Centum saying that they're getting out of the property bubble burst, right? And they're Two Rivers Mall. Have you seen them saying, okay, now come, we have reduced our prices
Actually, I don't know about Two Rivers.
We have seen some malls saying that they are running promotions where they say, come in and this is the promotion that we're having. You come and you have an introductory fee of this much. But are we seeing a serious reduction in prices in those properties that you're talking about in the leafy areas, which were earlier going for 18 million shillings for a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom house, and now they're going for 8 million?
I know of rents that started off as 180,000 a month. They're now at 100.
I think by the time you have those promotions running, whereby 10 years ago you would never hear of something like that. By the time somebody is saying, actually, you know what, let's do a different kind of price for you. Come in and see how you like it. Let's bring you in at least, and we lower the price. There's a reason why they're doing it. They're not doing it because they're feeling philanthropic.
I know of.
They're doing it obviously because they're being bitten at some point, and they don't have another option for the business within which they're going to operate. So it's either they're going to make this one work with what they have and what the market is available to offer, or they go under.
Okay.
So, I mean, here's an option for you to say, if they're saying, come in, see how you like it for reduced price, and then we can talk later. There's a reason why they're doing that. And that is indicative of the fact that things are not so good.
It's a market correcting itself. It's price.
I think we just need to accept that things are not as good as they were before.
They are not as good as they were before.
But you know, Eric, this one isn't the market correcting itself.
No, in this case,
is the market
unfortunately,
being forced in a certain direction because of the economic situation we find ourselves
and
in.
if the players in the market are going to stay afloat, they're going to have to go then with the times.
You know,
they're not going to be able to fight.
The market correcting itself, for instance, is when there appears to be a demand and people just keep building houses.
An oversupply of demand that's not matching with the
oversupply
oversupply that's not being
of a
met
commodity.
With
Yes,
demand.
exactly. And then at some point, that demand suddenly seems to at that point, it's correcting itself. It gets to what was real.
Where they stave it off now and say, okay, we need to stop now and stop producing.
No, you realize, you see, these are business people. I know of developers.
Those guys that were charging 180 and now they're charging 100. That is exactly what's happening. It's a market correcting itself. This person has realized, well, I was basically just swimming here on a very high wave, but the market is telling me now.
I think it's also the realization that people don't have money.
Exactly. Eric, that is market correcting itself.
Eric, this
market
development, Eric, the development I'm talking about is 2 years old. They completed it 2 years ago.
Unfortunately, they came in at the wrong time.
So
wrong end of a pyramid scheme.
Yes. So even then, before COVID, they were having problems getting tenants.
Yep.
Okay. So they reduced a little bit. No takers. They reduced it a little bit. But
Zero.
When you go to around 150, one taker.
Yep.
One.
Actually, the real estate sector has not been hit hard by COVID. It was hit hard earlier. And the correction was happening much earlier. We're going to be taking calls as we go along. We'll be looking at weather shortly. But before we do that, Zachary in Nakuru. Zachary, how are you?
Oh, good morning, guys.
Are you an investor, developer in real estate?
I tried to be one. But then I found that things on the ground are different. You guys were having a good discussion. And a part of you is saying that the cup is half full. The other one is saying the cup is half empty. But let me tell you what is really real on the ground, yeah? Not that there is no money. Money is there. People have money, Mr. Eric, Mr. Latif. And if you don't believe, you ask me. I know people who have money.
You have money, Zachary?
He says he knows people well. Yes.
But I know people have money, okay?
All right.
And what has happened is this, yeah? Look at our fathers. Our fathers never knew that Hawaii existed. They never knew that the Cayman existed, okay?
Yep.
And therefore, their generation has attached so much importance to land and buildings. And they had this idea of, when I retire, I shall come here, people shall be coming and queuing and riding and bringing me rent here. But now look at today's investor. today's investor is, let me call him the instant coffee generation, yeah?
Yeah.
Whose dream of a good life is not having tracts of land, houses. Their dream of a good life is going to abroad, having holidays, driving the latest sport Range Rovers, okay? Having the latest sophisticated iPhones. And therefore, they do not attach so much importance to land and buildings. Not that the money is not there. And that is why you are finding that spending trends are changing. And they affect the real estate, okay?
So this is the same person who was going to this high-end estate and paying 180,000 shillings rent for a 3-bedroom house. Not that they wanted to invest in this, to own that house, but they just had cash that they wanted to show the address. This is where I live. The show of lifestyle. So what has happened to that lifestyle?
Conspicuous consumption.
Conspicuous
that lifestyle. Do you know, the people today, if you ask young men there in town in Nairobi, they will tell you, I don't care whether, most of them will tell you, I don't care what other people think about me. The fact is, they want to have a Range Rover. And being seen driving it on the road and peeping you if you have got a jalopy, they are telling you, can you get off the road there? That is all what it becomes. Okay? And you guys have a nice day.
Thank you, Zachary. Have a good one. 0719-012-600. Is there a property bubble bust in Kenya? Yes or no? Is there a property bubble bust in Kenya? Yes or no? What's happening to the real estate sector in the country? Not just buildings, but also land. People have divided this country. There's an eighth anywhere you go. You go to Turkana County, there's someone who's selling an eighth, 50 by 100. Go to Lamu, 50 by 100. Go to Isiolo,
population, brother. Population, brother. And the realization that the smaller pieces of land make it easier for more people to afford it.
You see?
Yes.
It's different. 21 minutes after 9. Good morning. Let's take a look at the weather.
All right, let's look at how conditions may change for one last time this morning. In Nairobi, we will see the showers check in quite early. 21 degrees the high. In Nyeri at 21 degrees high as well, with showers in the afternoon. Promising to be a thundery afternoon in Nakuru. Highs of 23 and lows of 13. It's mostly cloudy in Eldoret. Highs of 20 and lows of 12. Kisumu 22 degrees right now. We'll see highs of 26 with showers expected later on with lows of 19. Kakamega is partly cloudy currently. We will see showers later with highs of 24 and lows of 15. Malindi at 27 degrees is mostly cloudy. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 26. Mombasa at 27 degrees. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 24. It'll be a rainy afternoon in Kampala, currently at 21 degrees. It'll go to highs of 24. Dar es Salaam at 26 degrees. We'll see highs of 30 and lows of 22. 5 degrees in Johannesburg and only highs of 9 and lows of 3 with wet conditions in the afternoon. Lagos, clear skies this morning at 26 degrees with sea highs of 31 and lows of 25. All right, let's go to New York where the sun will peak out very soon. Currently at 17 degrees. It'll be a clear day with highs of 25 and lows of 16. And in London, partly cloudy conditions at 16. Highs of 22 and lows of 13 with a wet afternoon. And finally, thunderstorms are forecasted for the afternoon in Paris. Highs of 23 and lows of 14. Currently cloudy conditions at 16 degrees for today.
So is there a property bubble burst in Kenya? Yes or no? 0719-012-600. As we're going into that weather, we're talking about population growth and that being the reason every part of the country is being divided.
Spice up your life.
With the county system that we have, more and more people have realized that perhaps it isn't such a bad idea to actually even go and settle there. And what it also means is when you have a government called a county government, more people get to work there. And if there are people working for the county, it means there are more people who have an income that they can do something other than existing on its own. So somebody may want to buy land. Not everybody can afford an acre. Not everybody can afford half an acre. So this division, you see, this is demand driven. And the realization that this is an easier way. But also, when you subdivide that land, what happens is that you end up making more money from it than if you sold it as one piece of land.
So the merchants are the ones who are driving this.
Yes.
It's not necessarily that, because if you look at it, many of the people who are investing in these 50 by 100s, yes, there are those that are investing in it so that they can put it to use by building on it and moving in, or by building on it and converting it into commercial. But many are speculating. Go between Mahiu and Naivasha, that whole stretch, 50 by 100, you actually just drive around the road and you can see small fences.
You're talking about Mahiu. What about just driving into Naivasha itself?
In Naivasha itself. Small plots that you can see have been fenced off, but not occupied, not being done anything. Speculators, right? And then you find out how much is this plot going for. You've been told 750,000 shillings for 50 by 100, somewhere in the middle of this other...
Which one?
Between Mahiu and Naivasha. That
but it is Elementaita.
No, that is Uko past Gilgil.
Okay.
No, yes, you're right. It is past Gilgil.
I'm talking about this crater between Naivasha and Mahiu, right? Longonot.
That's what I just said.
Did you say Longonot?
Yes, I did.
Oh, we didn't say loudly enough.
Okay.
So
Longonot.
Yes, thank you. So you find a piece of land there. You've paid 750,000 shillings or so for that piece of land, and then you were told, well, you can pay in 10 installments after you've given us the first 350. Speculative kind of market.
I agree completely.
So not anything to do with, population growth, pressure.
But Eric, that particular market doesn't lack takers. No. Where we have a problem with this, with the property is high end. Remember, there has been this thinking that there's this group of individuals who are referred to in Kenya as tenderpreneurs.
Yeah.
Okay? They seem to have been flush with money. And they are very keen on conspicuous consumption. So they will occupy. Now, the moment, and then there was a second issue some times ago that the pirates who were allegedly from the country of Somalia, many of them would invest their money in Kenya.
Yep.
Then came the story of many people who come from southern Sudan would invest their money. Actually, if you were to be honest in that outlook, you'll find there are people from DRC who do the same, Central African Republic who do the same, etc., etc.
From the region, this is the pot. Basically, anyone who takes money elsewhere.
If you don't want to take it too far away, you bring it here. And secondly, that money you didn't borrow. So even if your building is not occupied, it is okay. It is yours.
It is sitting somewhere there.
Yes. Now, I know of a developer whose developments are in what you call middle-class areas, not high-end, okay? Now, this particular individual started reducing his rent a year and a bit ago. I remember him telling me that, you know something, people don't have money. And it's ridiculous. Am I insisting on getting this amount of money
for this area?
Yes, when the building paid for itself a long time ago. Or rather, the buildings, because he has several flats, okay? Now, he kept reducing his rent. And I asked him, how far are you willing to go? He said, I'm just studying the situation. He had reduced it by 30%.
Was he going at a loss? Had he started at...
He had put the buildings up a while ago, and they had paid for... But most of it was as built from his cash flow, and then he borrowed a little money, but that had been repaid. So he was not at any loss. Now, there are people who are in that position. But if you look at the amounts being quoted in the paper, the staggering amounts of, should we say, real estate shares of bad loans in banks, that's what tells you, and you ask the question, is it in high-end property or is it in middle
or low?
Low, yes. Low, you would not be going at a loss.
You will not find it. This is why I keep saying This is that driven. It's driven by, I think also Zachary is talking about what you're calling conspicuous consumers. The conspicuous consumer who has this level of income, so is able also to afford a loan. So they go to a bank and they take a mortgage, and then they get a financial hit, and this is what happens. They start defaulting on their mortgage. They get into that bad loans book. Somebody else who also has come, and they came together as 5 friends. They went to the bank, they borrowed some money, they wanted to put up an apartment so that they can, rent out this apartment or sell the apartments because they are seeing what's happening in the market. So they go in there, they haven't really understood what the market is doing. They encounter a shock. What do they become? Bad loan statistics. Whereas that chap from the DRC, this guy who's selling fake gold, this guy who has all this cash, these people, they were basically looking for a place to put their money, and they put their money. And they initially started charging 250,000 shillings for this apartment. Start calling it, it has a swimming pool at the rooftop and all those things. And the gullible ones went and started occupying these places. When you get out, the gold merchant, is not really losing sleep over that.
No.
Which is why I keep going back to the point of, I do not think we have a bubble burst.
When development is spurred on by demand, all right? And it keeps being spurred on by demand. What you then have is a situation where you can say there is a growth in the property market.
Yeah.
Because you can see it. Now, the moment you have a problem with the demand, for whatever reason, those who are developing are usually slow to catch on to it. Then they keep developing.
They don't see.
No, they don't see it. After all, you can't really see it because you had anticipated this.
You'd already seen the pot of gold at the end of the
idea.
rainbow. Yeah, the pot of gold is your inspiration.
You're not going to
so
give
that's
up on
what
that
you're,
idea.
Yeah.
Now, the moment that discordance comes into play, then you have a situation where that sudden upsurge takes a twist and it starts diving. Okay? Now, I would concede by saying...
It hits you on its way down.
Oh, yes, it does. I would concede by saying that there is perhaps a bubble in the upmarket property. Yes. But to say it generally, no. Because there are property areas within this country that have actually grown as a result of this. If I lived in a 2-roomed house and they have reduced my salary by 50%, I will look for a house which costs half of what the other one cost.
Yes, no.
Immediately. And
so somebody else is benefiting.
Yes, exactly.
Yes,
so
yeah.
That particular market, when you have a crisis or you have a problem such as one we have, it grows. It doesn't actually diminish. So in that respect, I would agree with you.
What do you think? Is there a real estate property bubble burst in the country? 0719 012 600. We'd love to know what you think about this. 28 minutes to 10 o'clock. Let's look at what's happening on the roads. Are the roads busting?
Or are they bubbling?
Are they bubbling?
Bubbling would be what it is that we are looking at this morning, especially on Mombasa Road, where an accident now has caused heightened levels of traffic, unfortunately, all the way from the Gateway Mall and then leading down towards General Motors. It was already bad, and then now this is what we see because of that. Thika Road as well, it's moving slowly, it's making its way into the CBD. It shouldn't be too terrible from now out. Outer Ring, though, there was an issue this morning. It's bumper-to-bumper traffic, as it is on Jogger Road as well. Coming out of traffic hour in a few minutes or so it shouldn't be too terrible. Traffic hour, unfortunately, today has extended. There are factors that are also affecting this. The fog is still quite low on Limuru Road, farther out, but then coming out towards the village market and then into the CBD past the Aga Khan Hospital, it's brightening up a little bit, but it just means that traffic will stick around for a minute more. Okay, guys, that's what it looks like today. It hasn't been too terrible of a Tuesday as concerns traffic. Hopefully it gets better for you and you get where you're going soon enough.
Okay, so you're saying from then the new perspective is the high end, there's a problem.
There's a
The
bust.
lower end,
No.
there's no problem. In
No,
fact,
no
there was no sufficient investment in the lower end of the market, which is true. So what is it that made people not go into that lower end of the market?
Well, I think it's something.
Lack of foresight?
No, it isn't lack
Business
of foresight.
acumen?
No. Any businessman looks at where they can make money. Okay.
Now,
they've always done that. That's what business is all about.
Mm.
But then there's the element of prestige attached to some of these things.
Okay.
Now, anyone who doesn't take prestige as an important partner in making a business decision would have invested in the areas that we are speaking of, the low rent areas. Because nothing.
So you wanted to say, in the corner apartment, Tatu Kilimani.
Man, juicy too,
Sure,
yes. Yeah. Bus.
Karen is really, now people are moving into Karen. Right?
Yes,
Yeah,
and they,
so,
you can, yes, I'm thinking of buying some, 4 acres.
My goodness.
Think of that story, okay?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of buying something in Kayole. How's that conversation
People
going
just
to
look
go?
at you like, Kayole. Huko lakini utapata pesa.
Hiyo traffic yote.
Bas.
Instead of understanding, that traffic should tell you the number of people who
There's actually
there.
demand there.
Yes.
Daniel in Kisumu, good morning.
Good morning, Eric and the team.
Good morning. We're fine.
Yes, this kind of topic
Mm-hmm.
is quite viable when we invite somebody maybe from Elderman Properties or any other group that is concerned with this issue. But let me just check. Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, we're listening.
Yes, you see, there have been maybe strange market forces in this property industry. And these market forces are coming from these entrepreneurs and fraudsters and the willing investors who force the demand schedule.
Yep.
So this, especially when it started, it was quite good. And I think Kenyans were really willing to invest in the property market. But it becomes more so unregulated, and this bust came as a result of the demand for affordable housing. It has so far gone down because of the laxity for the investors to take risk. Because we've seen the fraudsters coming in, and some are not doing it at all.
Yeah.
And others are also as a result of these fraudsters.
So I've got to take other callers on the line, Daniel. So in summary of what you're saying, is there a property bust, yes or no?
Yes, there is. Yes, there is property bust.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Daniel. Simon in Nakuru, good morning. I think we just lost Simon. He was holding on the line. Simon, you can call back. We'll take your call on air now. He's basically saying there's a bust, and he's also talking about the influx of a particular type of investor in this sector, especially the high end, right? People who have ready cash, and it's in cash. And they're not looking at.
And they have to find a way to put that cash.
They're not looking at going to the bank to look for it. Simon is back. Simon in Nakuru, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
How are you doing, Simon?
I'm very fine. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks. Is there a property bust or not? Bubble bust?
For now, I don't think there is any property bust. I think, my own opinion, we do have a property bust when we have an oversupply in the market. Kenyan economy, I don't think we have any oversupply. The oversupply, we can only judge it right if the economy is stable, when everybody can afford. But after COVID, we will see more structures coming in, and people are going to take this building. Offices are going to be rented again. But for now, I don't think we can have a right judgment as whether we have a bubble. I don't think we have an oversupply. People are not able to afford just because we have a hinge of the economy right now. But after some time, economy is going to stabilize, and we are going to rent these houses. We're going
Simon,
to rent this office.
what do you say to situations where there were developments that were put up long before COVID, 2-3 years ago, and they've had that same problem? They are empty. I'm speaking about a property that I see in Nairobi.
Well, but we have so many structures still coming up, and they have been rented. But I don't know. They have the Kenyan rental market. We can subdivide it into maybe 3 parts. We have the high end. Those ones take a little bit of time for people to go there. We have companies who actually prefer to be on those kind of side.
Yeah.
But for others, even now I can still see people going around and looking for some buildings to put businesses. I think we can only have the right judgment if the economy is stable.
Okay.
We can then judge if we have an oversupply or
not.
We or not.
All right. Good points, Simon. Thank you very much. Oversupply or not. And if we have gotten to a point where everybody has occupied a space, right? And that's the space that they wanted. And then now you still have those empty ones then. But maybe we are still not yet there.
I think it also depends in which part of the country you're in.
I think so. I think our focus now has really been on
the main towns.
On the main towns, metropolis, as it were. And if you go to other areas, I don't think you see this kind of thing where people are building at the rate at which they're happening in these, it would be urban metropolis areas. I don't think that is the case. And I think that by virtue of them being urban area, metropolis, that dictates then the direction that people are going to go to develop, because the assumption is that people are going to take up these, whether they be office spaces or residences, by virtue of the fact that they are where they are geographically.
There'll be demand.
That's the assumption. That's the assumption that there will be demand.
When you travel around this country, you see some very fascinating things. I remember in a smallish town in the county of Siaya, I saw a building. That thing must be around 15 stories or 16 stories.
Wow.
I really have to ask who's going to inhabit. But anyway,
well, actually, the question I would ask is, when is it going to be completed? Because
it's still in the construction.
Well, it's still in the construction to be continued stage. It's one of those projects that you look at and it's what economic...
It was futuristic.
Yes.
The person is not looking at 2020.
Yes.
And when you say futuristic, we're not talking about aesthetics either, are we?
It's basically just thinking very far in the future.
Usually...
Investing for the long term.
2050, you said.
You know, there was a time in this country when it was very fashionable to own a beach hotel.
Yep.
And there are people who got into the business of beach hotels without perhaps giving adequate thought to those people who are going to stay in that hotel.
That it's a seasonal kind of thing.
It was important to consider it. So you put up this beautiful structure. It's really beautiful. But there's a small little problem here. There's a clear and distinct shortage of people who actually come in to stay there.
Yep.
Yes. And usually it's not that the hotel...
It's a certain market.
Yes.
And maybe you're also targeting the same market and not thinking that this... we are talking about a finite number of people.
There is. And also not considering that it's not your job. Once you build a hotel, the thing you have is money. But that is a very different business from whatever it is you did to make the money.
That money.
Yes. And you probably need to get people who understand how to do the marketing, how to
run the place.
Yes. So there are many such beautiful structures that were there.
Yeah.
And at best, they were usually hardly full. And they probably started making some money when they partnered with people who actually knew that business and understood what needed to be done.
Yeah.
Okay.
They started bringing the right people in.
Yes. I mean, for instance, if you look at the sort of structures that people put up in leafy suburbs like, say, Runda, I have not seen a small house in Runda.
No. How dare you?
As I said, I have not seen. But there's nothing stopping someone from building a house that is not necessarily big. something that they find suitable for them.
Yeah, as long as aesthetically it fits.
It fits the
neighborhood.
The prestige element in business decisions should never be discounted.
It's always there. Let's speak to John, who's in Nyandarua. John.
Yes, fine. How are you guys?
Good. Thank you, John.
Just wanted to say that the problem with our real estate development is that the developer develops the estate on loan. And whoever is purchases it on loan. So normally our capital for the purchaser and the capital for the builder, for the real estate developer is on loan. And normally wealth that is acquired on loan is wealth that is going to crumble, can always crumble. So when we lack capital to purchase the real estate, because we normally get it through the banks, that is when we say that a bust is coming, because there are no purchasers.
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, it's lack of capital that is destroying the real estate development.
So long story short, John, is there a bust or not now?
It is there because of lack of access to the purchase power.
Okay.
Yeah.
Asante sana.
Okay.
What do you think? 0719-012-600. Is there a property bubble bust in the country or not? This conversation, by the way, it keeps happening. It keeps coming up. This has been featured today in the Financial Standard, where it's talking about how Centum property bubble burst because Centum had moved in, Centum is an investments company. It had moved into real estate. They developed the Two Rivers Mall, other high-end properties in Nairobi and Mombasa, and then they've made a strategic decision to exit this market because of what this report says is after taking massive hit on investments with little return. So is there a property market burst or not? Justus in Kilifi, good morning.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
We're fine, thank you.
Good. Yes, it's been a while.
It has, hasn't it?
Yes.
How are you doing?
I'm great. I've been following the conversation.
Yes.
And as you talk, the notion of constipation came to mind. I feel like the real estate in Kenya, as we talk about the busting or no busting, suffers from what is akin to constipation. Why am I saying this? When you're in that condition, it's not because you lack food. It's because probably you ate badly.
You overate.
You overate, and you probably overate the wrong thing, no roughage, no something like that.
Right.
Why am I saying this? When you look at the real estate profile in Kenya, the upper end has been a little bit attractive for everybody. The many characters you have been describing.
Yep.
The prestige angle, the quick money, some of the money you cannot trace, and then therefore they have been building a lot. But when you go back, you realize that in some of our urban areas, there are some of the most prime properties that are actually lying wasted. Take the case of Eastlands. We have areas where there are very small houses occupying very prime prime areas, which can actually help assuage the problem of housing shortage in Nairobi. If you go to places like, Makadara, you'll find very small, dilapidated houses, which if we had very good imagination and also consuming our urban space well, we could have built better houses which could be cheaper, affordable to especially the working class. But instead what we do, we invest in these high-end areas where very few of the working class who actually need houses can occupy. So that on one end you have a shortage of houses on the east side, but on the west side you have an oversupply of houses. So as we are talking about the bubble, probably the bubble may happen at the top because nobody will occupy those houses. Now the question could be in future. I don't see it happening today and creating a big issue on the economy, but in the next 2-3 years, especially when we talk about the loans coming due and the banks trying to shift their interest to make up for this, then this could be the danger in future. But at the moment, I don't think there is a bubble. But on the east side, there is a big problem, which is a lack of imagination on how we can use the urban space on the other side to make housing cheaper and affordable to the people who actually need it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Justice.
Yeah.
Have a good one. 0719-012-600. The issue of developing the Eastlands part of it. This one has been talked about for a very long time.
By the way,
and that is government land.
It is
and we're talking about
land.
Thousands of acres.
It does. But also, any development that takes part in that part of the world is actually private development. So one may not hear much of it, but it does exist. And that particular part of Nairobi has actually been expanding. It's almost meeting Kangundo.
Yep. But if you look at the part before now you get to Outer Ring Road, just starting from Muthurwa all the way to Outer Ring Road, this is all government land. This estate, the old city council estates, where that's what Justice is talking about. The small houses in the Ofafas, the Ofafa Maringo, Jericho.
The establishments that were built for Africa.
Those ones that were done by, yes, exactly. There has been no development since the colonial era. But if you look at the space, you look at what could be put up there, and the talk that has been had even in government circles on what can be done there, how you can address the issue of affordable housing, looking at whatever sizes or whatever spectrum of the population. There's single units for people who are just coming out of college, the young people, when they start families, small families. As the families grow, you can have all that sorted. But because that is not sorted, then we are having this whole
actually Justice has actually painted a very, very good picture. And what he said is actually excellent information. The imagination, I don't think, is lacking. It's the bottlenecks that you come across
when you start imagining.
When you imagine, yes, so long as you imagine, no one can do anything. It's your mind, it's your imagination.
Yeah, when you implement it now, however.
When you try to implement it, that's when you realize, you ask yourself, am I really going to go through all this? It's one roadblock. You would think that the whole thinking would be to enable private developers to move along. Up to a certain point, there is. Up to a certain point. But the roadblocks,
many.
It's something that you would have argued, the government, knowing that it's a much needed contribution to the building of the economy, that they would even offer subsidies that would even make it easier for private developers to come in. Or they'd get into private-public partnerships with these fellows. Even when those things are touted and they're discussed. Sheesh.
It's 9 minutes to 10. This is a situation with Kenya's biggest conversation. We're live everywhere now. Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi, having had technical issues earlier in the day. But our live stream has been up, www.spicefm.co.ke and Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter as well. 0719-012-600. And this hour we're talking about the real estate sector in the country. Is there a property bubble burst or not? Please call in 0719-012-600. Good morning.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever.
In the situation room this and every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. is Eric Latif, Nduoko, and CP
Spice
Buga.
FM,
Geoffrey calling in from
Nakuru.
Mombasa. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
How are you?
How are you?
Good.
Sister Tuko Salama.
Well, I'm really glad about this conversation that is really going on. But I just want to make my admission that there is a bubble.
All right.
Because you realize now many Kenyans also have got the information whereby these properties that are actually put and made ready for them, some of them end up not meeting their tests. And some of them you'll only realize that the finishing is good, but the really work that was done on them wasn't so good. So some people who got the information now, they choose to just get into the hustle and bustle of just getting a plot and constructing their own houses. Then there's another thing whereby you realize there is that target. You know, those people who get into the property investment, there is a target. And they know it's a good earning investment, a quick earning investment. You make your huge sum of money at a go. Unlike other investments where maybe once you own it, then there is that level of depreciation. So property is always a good thing. But then with the investors, they are not honest. So when you realize people now are getting information that ready properties end up not meeting your test, end up not lasting you long, so people are divided. But this is what we expect.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, Jeffrey. Lydia in Parkland, good morning.
Good morning. This is Lydia, yes.
Yep.
I wanted to say, ask, there was a big difference during the British time. There were huge housing estates for the railway quarters, huge housing estates for the water department, huge housing estates for the electricity department. Where are they today? Since the 1980s, they all disappeared. What could have happened to them?
Do the estates still exist? Or are you saying that the estates were
Even there were electricity on Westlands Road. There was a long line of housing for telephone people.
Working in telephone. For
and
KPTC.
Moundu Close, Westlands was a huge estate for electricity people. And they all disappeared.
CT, might you know?
What happened was the World Bank gave us some advice. That was followed to the letter to our detriment.
Did exactly what Kenya was told.
Yes. Essentially, the government was informed that they were not in the business of housing their employees. Remember, the railways were parastatal, Kenya Power, something. So, one of the things that the government did, they decided to do away with these buildings, sold them. Some were given to government employees at a reduced cost, and so forth. That's how they disappeared.
Some were taken by government employees.
Some were taken by government. Yes.
Some are still in the possession of such and handed down to their family members for lifetime.
Oh, by the way, you didn't even need to be a government employee. You just needed to be connected to
just
people.
Connection.
Yes, but that's where those buildings went, Lydia.
They didn't physically up and go. They're still in the hands of many.
But then I think the point also is those kind of developments, that kind of idea of, all right, so you're a big organization, you're Kengen, you are a huge organization, you're Poster, you're thinking of housing your employees.
They used to think of, but when they started divesting, many of those corporations decided to actually give their employees the first option of buying those properties. Yes.
Okay. So this conversation, of course, it's a huge conversation. It continues on our social media platforms as well. Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter as we come to the end of today's show. Let's talk about the chief and the garbage pit.
Well, that the chief gets to hear everything or gets to deal with every unwanted problem, whether it's the theft of livestock, whether it's a domestic quarrel that has spilled over, whether it's a dispute about boundaries, all these things end up at the chief's doorstep. What I keep wondering is, where does the chief take his problems?
To the DO.
It keeps going higher.
Escalate it. Escalate it. So what's the point of today's proverb then?
The point of today's problem is this.
Proverb.
Even the problem.
What do I call it?
Problem.
Well, that was a Freudian slip. If you are in any position of authority of leadership, please expect that you'll be responsible for people and their problems.
That's it.
Yes.
And you should be prepared to address their problem.
You should be addressed. I mean, you yourself, when I say you should be addressed, I mean you should be addressed on the fact that these problems are going to arrive at your doorstep, whether you like it or not. If you really dislike it, then please don't find yourself in that position of authority.
People's problems come with the territory.
And those problems are as varied as the people themselves.
Okay.
And they're as complicated as the people themselves.
And it's your job to solve their problem.
It is your job, whether you like it or not.
Okay.
Yes.
The conversation continues?
It most certainly does.
All right. And do?
Yes, it does. And be safe.
Sanitize.
Isolate. Mobilize. Have a good
Viva. See you tomorrow, folks. It's coming up to 10 o'clock. This is A Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We're back at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Signing off is C.T. Muga, Nduoko, Eric Latif. Monique will be here from 2 o'clock on Spice Drive. Starts at 3. All right? 3 to 7, Spice Drive. And then 7 to 10, it's the adults in the room. Good morning and goodbye.